by SuperDraft.io or download them in the App Store. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, I'm Dave Lochran. With me, Adam Scher, 9-game slate today. What's up, brother?
How's it going, man? Pretty interesting slate. A lot of news, a lot of moving parts. Should be fun to talk about.
Yeah, this morning, the Turtle was at like 87% projected ownership, and it's still up there at 77%.
Yeah, I don't really know how to get away from that one in particular.
I don't think you can.
Yeah,
Sal and I discussed it this morning. It's like you kind of just have to go 100% at this point.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if I don't.
Yeah,
especially on DraftKings. I mean, FanDuel obviously it's a little bit different conversation, but
a decent amount of value. Several values at the center or power forward position, which definitely makes them a bit more valuable. We'll hit on all of that. Glad to have everyone with us. As always, welcome to the stream. Let's do this first. Hey, SuperDraft.io. As I mentioned, you can download it or in the App Store as well. They're running the $40,000 jump shot today. $10K up top to first place, $12 to enter. Why wouldn't you want to jump into that? $10K up first. Here's what you do. Instead of having regular salaries like you would on DraftKings or FanDuel, you've got multipliers. What's that mean? Well, very simple. 1x would be a Luka Doncic or a Trae Young or James Harden type. They get exactly what they score. If they score 55, you are getting 55 fantasy points. On the other hand, and here's what makes the strategy really interesting, Jakob Poeltl, if Poeltl comes in and puts up, well, let's say he drops 35 fantasy points. Well, his multiplier is 1.8. So you know what? I'll do the math for you. So 1.8 to 35, you're getting 63 there on Poeltl. So it's all about finding the best value in terms of what their multiplier is going to give them in the event that they have a good game. It's really fun to try and solve this puzzle. It's different from everything else. And you can get $20 free in super cash, as good as money to be played on the site, to win real money, to play on all the contests. $20 by signing up with us using the promo code Awesemo and depositing $100 or more. So you deposit $100, boom, you got $120. Use the promo code Awesemo when you do it. Jump in there today. Still a lot of spots left in that jump shot. Again, $10K to first. SuperDraft.io or download it in the App Store. We'll see you over there. They are the sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Let's jump into it. What do you say?
Yeah, let's go.
Same question as always. Is it a stars and scrubs night? Is it a balanced night? What are we looking out for heading into the 7 o'clock lock?
Yeah, it seems pretty stars and scrubs favorable to me. You have some guys at the top to pay up for. You have tons of value, notably Poeltl, as we talked about, but some other cheap value as well. Still waiting on big news on Trae Young, which could open up even more. And then the mid-range, there are some good plays there for sure, but there's several games on this slate that aren't really that appealing. So it does kind of cut down the mid-range when you start looking at those options. So I expect to be going pretty heavy on stars and scrubs tonight.
All right, let's dive into it. We got 9 games. Set them up, knock them down. Washington at home hosting the Brooklyn Nets. You got some interesting spots here. Bradley Beal, 2 consecutive 50 plus real scoring games and 2 losses to go along with that. Good job, Washington Wizards. We're still waiting. Last I looked on the Bertans news, so we'll let you know as that comes in. Thomas Bryant is probable. On the other side, though, Adam, wait, you know what? We'll wait till we get to the other side because I think there's a lot more to talk about with Brooklyn. Let's kick it off with Washington, starting with Bradley Beal. In this one, they are home dogs to the Brooklyn Nets, 2.5 points, but also a 234 total, which is one of the highest marks on this slate, second highest.
Yeah, I think the Washington, we are still waiting on Davis Bertans, who's questionable. It seems like he missed the last game because it was the second half of a back-to-back more so than anything. So I'm expecting that he plays, but I'm waiting on that news. If we assume that he's in, then it kind of makes minutes not really appealing for most guys on the Wizards. You also have Thomas Bryant back, so that Jan Mahinmi, Mo Wagner center rotation is a thing of the past that we had last game. The one guy that does stand out is Beal. He's, you said obviously coming off of 2 huge games, but really since he came back from his injury in the middle of January, you've just seen a completely different player. He had been a good fantasy player all season long. But since coming back, he's played 18 games. He has a 38.9% usage rate. He's averaged 1.38 DraftKings points per minute. That's compared to before his injury, averaging 1.22 DraftKings points per minute with a 32.5% usage rate. His true shooting percentage before the injury was 55.5%. Now it's up to 61.4. And the thing that really stands out, in addition to the increased usage, is that he was averaging 15.1 drives per 36 minutes before his injury. Since he's up to 18.6. So you're seeing him be more aggressive. You're seeing him get better shots, getting to the rim more. And I think that the fact that he's driving more and the fact that, maybe he really was just banged up before his injury makes me think that maybe, that he can continue a lot of this production. So I think he looks like a pretty appealing option at 9,700. But beyond that, if we assume Bertans is in, Bertans himself is a secondary option. Shabazz Napier, who played a bunch of minutes last game and most importantly played a good amount of minutes alongside Ish Smith, is, a secondary option, but nothing that really stands out to me beyond Beal.
Okay. So let's take a look at Brooklyn. Wilson Chandler's out. That might not seem like anything, but it is relatively significant. I guess you already have a lot of value on this slate, so it's not as important, but we'll talk about that. A couple of interesting things to note, though. This Brooklyn team, since Irving went down, so he went down on the 1st of February. So basically this entire month, the tides have changed a little bit. For instance, LeVert is first in minutes. Dinwiddie is second. LeVert first in usage, 32.2%. Dinwiddie 25. Big difference there over this 9-game stretch. Dinwiddie 35% assist rate. LeVert at 27. That's first and second. They're basically first and second in everything. And then LeVert 1.27 fantasy points per minute. Dinwiddie is second at 1.12. I mention this because you look at Dinwiddie's price, and he is very expensive. It's a very good matchup. There's no doubting that. But with what we've seen from Karis LeVert since Kyrie Irving went down this most recent time, given that he's cheaper on DraftKings, 7,500 compared to Dinwiddie's 8K, on FanDuel, Dinwiddie 7,100, Karis LeVert 65. It's really hard for me not to heavily prioritize LeVert over Dinwiddie if I'm running with one of these guys tonight against the Wizards.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's obviously a good matchup for both, but you really have seen LeVert cut into Dinwiddie's production. Looking at the games that Kyrie Irving has missed since LeVert came back from his own injury, 27.2% usage rate for Dinwiddie, 32.2% for LeVert. So LeVert's got the edge there. Rebounding percentages are about the same. 36.9% assist percentage for Dinwiddie, 26.6 for LeVert. So, Dinwiddie does have the edge there, but Kenny Atkinson is staggering their minutes. So LeVert's still getting plenty of assist opportunities in his own right. And both guys are playing around 34 minutes. So I think that it does favor LeVert, especially where he's less expensive. DraftKings gives him forward eligibility as well, which on this slate I think is a really big deal because there's a ton of guards. There's a lot of good center options. Forward's the position that I think you're kind of digging to try and find, good plays at. So him having forward eligibility on DraftKings makes him really appealing there. On FanDuel, he's a shooting guard, but he's also really cheap at 6,500. So I still think that he's one of the better shooting guard options there.
Do you have any interest in Taurean Prince with Chandler out? We knew that he ate into his minutes, maybe only a few per game, but you weren't seeing Prince get up above 30 since Wilson Chandler returned to the lineup. Jared Allen's a very interesting one. Could almost say he's enigmatic. Given how his production has been all over the map. But recently, he's been really, really impressive, even with limited playing time. It's just so hard for me on a slate where you've got really good value centers to prioritize someone like Allen. And even with Prince, I don't hate him because this is such a good matchup. Any other matchup, I don't think we'd be having this conversation. But I want to just break down the rest of this team because it is a Wizards team that ranks, 29th in defensive rating and top 5 in pace on the season.
Right. I think that the point you made with Chandler being out is important because it just helps to solidify those minutes. It makes it a lot easier to expect 30 or 31 minutes for Taurean Prince in a really good matchup. Since Irving's injury, he has a 20.9% usage rate. So it's not like you're talking about a really low usage guy here. And it's a really good, a favorable matchup against Washington. So, I think that those extra couple of minutes for Prince look good. Joe Harris, obviously not the highest usage guy, but if you're expecting 34 plus minutes from him, he looks like a decent value as well. And then in the front court with Allen, I think he's a better play on FanDuel because he's a $5,400 power forward instead of a center. But he's definitely someone where if he's not going to get much ownership, you can look to him in tournaments because it is a good matchup. It is a high upside spot in a pace up game. There's not really a center on Washington that you expect him to struggle with defensively. So it's less likely that he gets benched for DeAndre Jordan. So I do think he's a good play. It's just that there are so many center options. And then even the one other guy that I would point out is that with Chandler out, you probably get a couple more minutes for Garrett Temple as well, who, again, not a high usage guy, but is someone that'll go out, pick up some defensive stats, knock down some threes, and Washington should give him plenty of open threes.
Okay. Anybody else here? I think we covered it pretty comprehensively.
Pretty much the whole team.
Yeah, exactly. Top plays from Brooklyn. For me, it's LeVert. I do have interest in Allen and Taurean Prince, but I don't want to be super overweight on him.
Yeah, LeVert's the number one guy for me. Then I would say Prince, Harris. And then I would say that anyone in the rotation before you get to like Luau, Cabarro, and Kurucs is a viable play, though.
All right, so I've set today's show up when I was planning it to where there were two games specifically that, and I even reached out to you to make sure that there wasn't something you really liked that I was missing. There are two games, right, that we both agreed won't need to spend too much time on. This is one of them. Charlotte at home hosting the New York Knicks. I pointed this out to Sal this morning. Not like an in-depth stat or an advanced stat or anything, but listen to the Hornets scoring point totals over their last 5. 80, 86, 103, 87, and 100. They're under 90 in 3 of their last 5 games, man. This is a really bad basketball team. They just lost Malik Monk. No wonder he's playing so well to that juice. No, I don't know. Is it for violating the anti-drug program? So he's out for an indefinite period of time. Devontae Graham will be back today, but this is a bad basketball team. Both of them have super low implied totals, easily the lowest total on the slate at 207.5. Knicks 2.5 point favorites, but they have a 105 total. Adam, Charlotte at 102.5. What an ugly game all around.
Yeah, pretty ugly game. I mean, from the New York side, with them getting healthier, you have Elfrid Payton probable. The only guy that really looks appealing to me at all is Julius Randle at 8,400. Obviously, it's a weak Charlotte front court. He should be able to go absolutely nuts against them. You could certainly roll the dice on Mitchell Robinson for the same reasons, but his minutes are all over the place, and there are a lot of good center options today. I think the Charlotte side's a little bit more interesting because you do have Malik Monk, who had been playing 28 to 30 minutes and is a relatively high usage guy not playing. I don't think it has a drastic impact on anyone, but I think that the usage for Rozier and Graham should go up a little bit. I think that you're going to get 26 to 28 minutes for Cody Martin. So, and the whole team pretty much is cheap. So I see some opportunities for like filler plays from the Hornets. I think Rozier is my number one guy from Charlotte, but I don't see anyone here that is a top play for me in the context of the entire slate.
Davis Bertans will play today, so we've officially got confirmation. Also, here's something we should need to hit on real quick. Shabazz Napier will start over Ish Smith.
I like it.
Any interest?
Yeah, I had some interest in him, assuming he was coming off the bench because, like I said, he did play more minutes alongside Smith. He closed over Smith last game. I think that now there's a legitimate shot you get like 30 minutes from Napier, and he's a productive player when he's on the floor.
All right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You've got him weighing in on DraftKings at 4,700. So it's not like Napier is the bottom barrel, 43 on FanDuel, but still should be pretty solid value here. 36 minutes last time out, as you mentioned. I'm assuming he played the entire overtime period.
He did, or close to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, he averaged with Minnesota this year. He averaged 0.93 DraftKings points per minute. With Washington, his usage rate's been a little bit higher through his first 7 games. He's at 1.05 points per minute. So I mean, he always has been a productive player when he's out there. And I think that this does give him more minutes. I guess the one negative, if you wanted to find one, was more minutes alongside a 38% usage Bradley Beal isn't necessarily the most productive minutes.
Any interest in the Knicks?
Just Randall, really.
Okay. I mean, I don't really think there's anything else here that we need to cover. It's a bad game. should be the lowest scoring, at least one of on the slate. And both of these teams really have trouble putting the ball in the basket. So I think we can move on. Let's go to Cleveland and Philadelphia. So here's an interesting game. And I'll run this by you again for anyone that's been living under a rock for the past several months. The Sixers are 9-20 on the road, 27-2 at home, 9-20 against the spread on the road, meaning like even when they're winning games, Adam, they're not. And I say this because they've been favored most of the time. Even when they're winning games on the road, they're not covering. Like the 9 wins they have been close. Andre Drummond is out, has been ruled out for today. It's funny because he hadn't played a single minute in the fourth quarter since Bickerstaff took over, which is just super strange. But we won't have to worry about that. Tristan Thompson gets the nod. They're 7.5 point home dogs, and that's appropriate. It's not like you can be putting the Sixers at -12 here, although you should be. We'll get to the Sixers in a moment, but let's first break down Cleveland, starting with Tristan Thompson, knowing that Andre Drummond, whose minutes have been really restricted since Bickerstaff took over, is out. And now you don't have to worry about him siphoning anything off. So Thompson and Nance are the two guys I want to get into first.
I think Cleveland as a whole, it's really interesting because of Drummond being out and the fact that they're kind of low key missing a lot of guys. They're not outside of Drummond. They're not the most relevant fantasy guys, but they're kind of shorthanded here. So starting in the front court, I'm expecting.
And we just got news that Exum's out for an extended period of time now.
Right, and Alfonso McKinney is also out. So starting in the front court, I think that I thought it was a matchup where Thompson might get more run anyway, and then now you have Drummond with his newest questionable injury that happens to coincide with Joel Embiid being the opposing center.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I only did because when I was doing minutes
about that, or didn't you have something where you said like every time these guys face each other, one of them, is it Embiid or Drummond that's always out?
It's usually Drummond that has some out of the blue injury and doesn't play.
That's bizarre.
It was weird because I was doing minutes today and I was like, I think Thompson could get a few more just for the matchup. And I was like, wait, is Embiid even going to play? And then 30 minutes later, he's out with some new injury.
That's so strange.
Or Drummond,
we're projecting Drummond out since yesterday.
Right. So anyway, I think Thompson gets back into his probably around 32-minute role. He's priced for his backup role. So he's been around a 1 fantasy point per minute guy this year. It's obviously a tough matchup, but he has had some success in the past against Embiid from a fantasy standpoint. And more than that, it's just that, he's cheap and should get the minutes here. I'm expecting Nance to get at least some backup center minutes in addition to his minutes backing up Kevin Love. So I have Nance in for 30 minutes as well. The problem is just that he is priced up. He's almost $6K on DraftKings. So he still doesn't really look like a great option to me. I'd still rather get the Tristan Thompson from, the front court guys.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Thompson coming in at I'd say a pretty hefty discount, especially given that we saw his minutes curtailed quite a bit. But even with Drummond here, he's played 26, 26, 26, 29 in that home win over the Miami Heat, who are almost as bad on the road as the Sixers. So it's a good price. I will ask you this though, because it's probably important to cover all our bases when it comes to the center position. Thompson also $5,100 on FanDuel. What's he at on SuperDraft? He is. Is he a forward there? I can't find him. Anyway, okay. The center position with Pirtle and a couple of others, but specifically Pirtle, is going to make it so on FanDuel, a lot of people are going to be going there. How much do you have to like another center to get away from someone like Pirtle on sites with only one center?
I think that it comes down to your build, really. Like, you want to be able, if you're coming off of Pirtle, it's because you like value at other positions. I do think that on the one center sites, it's harder to prioritize Thompson because you do have Pirtle for less, and then you have some really high upside guys for more, whether it's Embiid or Ayton or Vooch or whoever. So gotcha. I think he is a lot more viable on two center sites.
By the way, I forgot that the SuperDraft is running from 7:30 and on, so we have the special SuperDraft half hour coming up after Live Before Lock at 7 p.m. So this game's not on that slate. My apologies. Anything else for Cleveland?
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot here, especially if you're not going to get a whole lot of ownership. Because like I said, the fact that you have Exum sidelined, you have McKinney out, and now you have Drummond out, I think does open up some more minutes. Bickerstaff had talked about when he came in about wanting Kevin Porter to get more minutes as a ball handler. The first game with the new coach, Porter got ejected with 2 technical fouls. Second game, he only played like 14 minutes. We finally got we got big run out of him last game. Prior to, or just in regulation, he played around 32 minutes. But I think that he can get up to 30 or 32 minutes again here, just because of the injuries and the fact that they should be wanting to play him. He's up to 5,100 on DraftKings, but without Drummond or Clarkson on the floor this year, he's got a 22.6% usage rate, 13.5% assist percentage. I think he's a reasonable guy at low ownership in tournaments. Same goes.
He played 35 minutes in regulation.
Is that what it was?
Or sorry, 36. Yeah,
I was going from memory. I was thinking he had played 36, including overtime.
He played, including overtime, 23 straight minutes in the second half in overtime.
Yeah, so the minutes clearly there for him, at least if he's playing well. So I think that's pretty appealing. You have a pretty cheap Kevin Love who should see a little bit of a bump in rebounding since he's not playing alongside Andre Drummond for the season alongside Thompson. He's got a 17.5% rebound percentage. But I think that Porter is the secondary guy here that I like the most.
I'm a little disappointed that Andre Drummond was ruled out because I thought just Embiid at incredibly low ownership was kind of interesting. But I guess it doesn't make such a big difference because we still got him sub 10% on DraftKings where you can play multiple centers. On FanDuel, a little bit different. He's 10-2, but you can only play one there. He's a 1.62 fantasy point per minute guy with no Simmons, 37% usage, 23.5% rebounds, and 23.3% assists, which is a pretty important number there. You see him play more of a facilitating role in the half court. But outside of that, it's just exactly what I mentioned to you the other day. And I'm not saying you got to prioritize Embiid. It is a slate with a lot of good top tier players. But just to kind of drive this home, he's played 36 minutes in regulation in each of the Sixers' last 2 competitive games. So they cannot afford to lose games to bad teams on the road. If this game does remain competitive into the fourth quarter, Embiid's getting another 35, 36 minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, obviously he gets the usage bump or the bump in rates across the board without Simmons, but the minutes are the biggest thing. We've seen for so much of this season, it's been, you can't really project more than 30 to 32 minutes for Embiid, but now you have someone that plays 38 plus minutes a night not playing. You have a team that needs to win games and they're running Embiid for really heavy minutes. So I'm more comfortable going to like 34, knowing that there is even upside at that price for him to play more. And then you factor in that, even going back to last season in games that Simmons hasn't played, he has a 35.5% usage rate. So, I understand that the price tag came up and you're starting to have to compare him to guys like Luka Doncic, for example, but I still think Embiid's a really strong option, especially again, like on 2 center sites where it's not costing you Jakob Poeltl.
Anything else for the Sixers today? For me, it's Embiid number 1. Outside of that, not sure how interested I am here, but your thoughts on Tobias Harris and the like.
Yeah, it's Embiid number 1, but I do really like Harris here because for 1, I don't think the forward positions are all that strong today. And for 2, he plays huge minutes. He's averaged 36 minutes per game in the 4 games that Simmons has missed this year. But you've also seen his usage isn't really affected by Simmons, but he has a higher rebounding percentage. He has a higher assist percentage when he plays without Simmons. So you're getting more peripherals from him. And it's a Cleveland defense that's been the least efficient defense since the start of January and one of the least efficient for the entire season. So I think that Harris should be able to make the most of his time on the floor. So I think he still looks like a pretty high floor forward option that has a reasonably high ceiling as well.
Trae Young is now probable. And
good.
Bismack Biyombo is now starting ahead of Cody Zeller.
That's annoying.
What's that?
I said that's annoying.
Yeah, Devontae Graham will also start. Just trying to get that news out there. Does the Biyombo news do anything? Change anything?
Yeah, I mean I think he played like 24 minutes the last couple of games he started for.
I thought so. Yeah, and he's $100 above the minimum on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $3,800.
I still prefer Poeltl.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Especially on FanDuel where you only play 1, but it's not outrageous to think that you could have some Pirtle Biombo lineups on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can. The problem is that then you're not getting Embiid or Vooch or whatever. But yeah, it's certainly something you can do.
Right.
Like spend $6,000 on probably 56 minutes at center or something.
Right. And no, you're not getting them, but fortunately it's a slate where there are the Westbrooks and the Hardens and the Youngs and the Doncic's and like quality alternatives. But
so do we have Zeller out, or is Zeller just coming off the bench?
Don't have that news yet, I don't believe. If you see anything, let me know. Let's talk Miami and Minnesota. Miami Heat, big favorites here. This one opened at like 9.5. We're up to 11.5. So that's good if you got in on that early. 234 over under. The Miami Heat, 122.8 implied total today. Compared to the rest of the slate, it's second only to the Houston Rockets, who are at 124.5. So Minnesota, pretty putrid defensive team. They don't even have Gorgie Jang anymore with Karl Anthony Towns out to kind of protect the paint and the rim. Oh, Bam Adebayo is now questionable. All right, so it looks like we're just getting a ton of news rolling in. Gonna have to pay close attention to this stuff. But anyway, what are you doing with the Miami Heat now that at least we have the news on Jimmy Butler?
So Butler being in, I think, makes him a really strong option just because he's not priced up. It is a good matchup against a fast-paced Minnesota team. The only real concern that you have for Butler is that Miami just massacres Minnesota and he doesn't play.
And I think they will.
What'd you say?
I think they will.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not something that's going to really affect my projection.
For sure.
So, I think if you're expecting 33 to 34 minutes of Butler in a pace-up spot against a defense that isn't very good, he looks really appealing. I mean, games where Dragic has played this year, which I think is worth mentioning since he is a high usage guy that plays 28 to 30 minutes, Butler still has a 25.5% usage rate and a 27% assist percentage. So Butler looks like a really good option. If we assume Bam is in, I don't have a whole lot of interest in anything else coming out of Miami. I think Bam himself would be fine, but I would still put him behind Embiid and Vooch and Ayton, even considering salaries. If Bam sits, then it's opening up a ton of minutes for Kelly Olynyk, who I assume would, get most of the minutes at center. I think it would give more minutes to Derek Jones as well, who I expect to go back to the bench if Bam plays.
Is that where you're at on Miami?
Yeah, obviously huge news to keep an eye on with Bam.
Yeah, huge. So if he's out, just quickly, if he ends up being out, what are you doing?
Probably going back to like 26 to 28 minutes for Kelly Olynyk, going back to mid-20s in minutes for Derek Jones.
Because Myers Leonard is out as well.
Right, Leonard's out as well. You probably can tack a couple extra minutes onto like Iguodala and Crowder also. But I think the main beneficiaries are probably Olynyk and Jones if Bam sits in terms of playing time. But it also would, give rebounding bumps to guys and give probably more usage to Butler and none.
For sure. Naz Reid got through a game without 5 fouls, which was really impressive stuff. He played 27 minutes last time out. James Johnson coming off the bench played 24. I think you're going to continue to see them come close to splitting, maybe a minute or two, a couple minutes alongside each other, but their prices are both coming up a bit. D'Angelo Russell's pretty pricey against the Miami team that not only has been stellar at home this season, but is a good defensive team. We could get into Malik Beasley, pretty scoring dependent, but you know what? If you were on Kobe White yesterday, that stuff will work out sometimes when they're knocking down all of their shots. But either way, you're talking about a Miami team that's going to make life pretty miserable for the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Beasley is at 5,900 on DraftKings. I think that's the most appealing price point for me from Minnesota, just because in competitive games, you're getting like 36 minutes from him. He has a little over 25% usage rate with Minnesota, even in games where D'Angelo Russell has played. I think that there's there's huge risk with him. The floor is basically non-existent because it's a tough matchup. And like you said, he is scoring dependent, but there is at least upside there if he shoots well. D'Angelo Russell, I think, is priced about where he should be, probably a little high for the matchup. And then beyond those guys, I just really have zero interest.
Neither do I. I think we can move on.
Yep.
Let's do Atlanta and Orlando. The line actually shifted a lot on this with that Trae Young news, but that was, I guess, some assumption that he was going to be out. That's not the case. Now he's expected to play. Still 4 points, so maybe it hasn't changed. Maybe it was not for that reason, but I would have thought so. That was pretty immediate movement. They're 4-point dogs at home, 226 total against the Orlando Magic. Trae Young is the type of guy that can go out there and light anybody up. You mentioned that you talk about this a lot. We both mentioned it on the stream quite a bit. Trae Young, somebody that is very involved as a ball handler in the pick and roll. Orlando allowing the second fewest points per possession in those situations this season. Defensively, even without Jonathan Isaac, they've been a good enough team. Trae Young, compared to the other high-priced players, they don't have to be guards. Harden, Embiid, Doncic, Westbrook. Where is he coming in for you?
I really didn't think he was going to play, so I'm trying to
I didn't
update.
think he was either.
Yeah, so I'm trying to update on the fly, but the thing is, like on DraftKings, he's 10-4, which I think is perfectly fine. He's obviously a huge ceiling guy. It doesn't matter a whole lot on matchup. Like he tends to get his. The problem is that it's like the same price as Luka Doncic, which is absurd. It's basically the same price as
Lucas.
Embiid.
Way too cheap. It's just
Right, exactly.
It's
so
egregious.
I think it's the ceiling makes him someone that you can certainly play in tournaments because he probably will be low owned since it's so clear he's not an optimal play. One thing I find interesting is, you mentioned that Orlando has been one of the best teams in the league in terms of efficiency defending the pick and roll. They are in the top half of the league though in pick and roll possessions allowed. So
I said the same thing this morning. It's one of those strange situations.
right. It just makes me a little bit less concerned than I would be. Like when you look at a team that isn't allowing those possessions, it's because they defensively scheme to get rid of them, and there's a really good chance they're going to be getting the ball out of Young's hands. But Orlando, they give up the attempts; they're just good at defending them. Young's one of the most efficient pick and roll guys in the league, in addition to being one of the the highest frequency guy. So I'm a little bit less concerned because at least the opportunities will be there. It's less likely that, you're watching the game and you're just seeing them, trap him at half court and him never shoot.
Fair enough. So assuming he plays, and it sure looks like he's going to play, what are we doing with the non-Trae Young Atlanta Hawks today against the Magic? Because personally, this is not a spot that I have ample interest in.
Yeah, I don't think I'm doing much of anything. I mean, John Collins is playing huge minutes. Ford's not the strongest position, so I could see some argument for him, but I think that it's still not really that appealing because of the matchup. Kevin Huerter obviously loses production when Young is in. We do have Dwayne Dedman questionable. He at 4,300, he's someone that if he's in, I could see taking some shots at him just because maybe one game before the end of the season, he'll stop being in foul trouble. But on the other hand, it seems pretty unnecessary on the slate because you have Pirtle, you have Biyombo, you have so many centers at the top. So with Young in, I think Atlanta just becomes really unappealing outside of Trae Young.
Okay. So do I. How about Orlando? We'll start with Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah, Orlando's a really weird team because on one hand, it's one of the best matchups you can get with Orlando being a bad defensive team that plays really fast. But the pricing on the Magic, I think, is a lot more efficient than it is on a lot of other teams today. Vooch is a good option at 9,500, but it's 1,400 on DraftKings, 1,400 more than DeAndre Ayton. It's only 1,000 less than Embiid. So I think still a secondary option where I'm happy if I get to some Vooch, but I can't prioritize him over those guys. The same kind of goes for everyone else. Like you're getting really big minutes lately from Aaron Gordon, but he's up to 7,800, which makes it tough. Fultz is at 5,900, Fournier is at 6K. They both kind of just grade out as neutral plays for me. James Ennis played 27 minutes last game and is only 3,400, but with the other good value you have on the slate, I don't think I'm going to be doing too much, hoping to get a good James Ennis game. So it's just a really weird situation where I think that it's a really good matchup. I think you'll get some good performances from Orlando, but the salaries are high enough where I'm not prioritizing anything.
This is the first time in a while where I look at a matchup against the Hawks and I don't want to play at least 3 players from the opposing team.
Right, exactly.
It does feel that way for sure. None of them they're priced appropriately. It just doesn't mean that it's really all that appealing. To me, Vooch is still a pretty solid option. And I have no problems getting there.
And all these guys have massive upside because of this spot. It's just that from a median projection standpoint or a probability of them being the best play at their salaries, it's a little bit lower probability.
Who do you like more collectively, the Brooklyn Nets against the Wizards or Orlando against Atlanta?
Brooklyn, just because of the pricing.
Okay, exactly. Keep it moving here. Or anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Oh, hey, Deeper Dive is what you're watching. It's also the promo code to get 50% off your first week of Awesomeo Plus Platinum subscription. Deeper Dive, all one word, will get you the ownership projections, the player projections, all of our tools, all of which are developed and used by Alex Baker himself, the number one DFS player in the world. You may know him by the name of Awesemo. We've got the top. I said this on the strategy show, but the top stack tool was one of the best tools that has come out in a long time for baseball, Adam. And we really honestly, I didn't even really know about it for the first couple of weeks of the season because we have so much on the site. And then kind of once we discovered it, it was immediately worked into our daily routine.
Yeah, exactly. And same thing for hockey for me, except for I knew it was there, so I started using it immediately.
Right, for sure. All of that stuff. It's not just basketball, baseball, hockey, football, XFL, projections, and ownership. Man, we got it all. I mean, seriously, you can't beat it. You need any type of DFS content, tools, analytics, stats. No better place to come than Awesomeo.com, and you'll get 50% off your first week just by using that promo code Deeper Dive at checkout. Go to Awesomeo.com/join. And while you're there, you can select different plans or scroll to the bottom of that page and see tutorials and be able to understand what the tools are and what we have to offer beforehand for videos on each tool and the premium Slack chat, the ownership, you name it, all that stuff, the lineup builder, all of our premium articles. Just use that sign up code Deeper Dive and we'll see you over there. And be sure to say what's up in the premium Slack chat when you do. All right, Houston, Memphis, let's get it. Houston, Rockets are one of the strangest teams, clearly the exception to the rule, even in 2020 era basketball. 11.5-point favorites. Memphis Grizzlies coming off of a brutal loss to the Clippers. At no point was that competitive. I don't care if Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark were both healthy. They were getting smoked. 237.5 total, though, Adam. It's the highest on the slate. Talk to me about the Houston Rockets, starting with this dynamic duo in the backcourt of James Harden and Russell Westbrook.
Obviously it's a fast-paced Memphis team. It's a fast-paced Houston team. There should be tons of points scored in this game. You've seen Harden start to, we had that stretch where when him and Westbrook both played, he was really deferring to Westbrook. Hasn't been quite the case recently. You're getting a little bit more out of Harden, but still obviously produces less when Westbrook is in. And the problem that you run into is that he's close to $1,000 more expensive than Luka. So, I think Harden, obviously a really high upside play, a good play, but I do have him behind Luka here, especially when you factor in the salary. Westbrook at 10-1 is really interesting because he's certainly benefited from the approach Houston's taking with these small ball lineups. It's spacing the floor more. It's really opening up the paint. He's getting to the rim at a ridiculous clip. Usage is going up as a result. So I think that I think 10-1 for Westbrook is actually a little bit more appealing to me than 11-3 for Harden.
How about everywhere else from Covington to, well, pretty much just Covington? he's getting ownership, and rightfully so. He's definitely the type of guy that he kind of, what's that saying? Moves with the tide, or you know what I'm talking about? You don't.
No idea what you're talking about.
Really? Damn it.
Roll Tide?
No, certainly not. Roll Tide. But my point is that when things are going good, when things are going well, Robert Covington is probably going to be in good shape. This is the type of team that you're going to see nights where they just can't hit a damn thing from three. And they're already rebounding at the lowest clip since losing Clint Capella. So when you're rostering Covington, there are going to be games. I mean, I watched against Golden State last week. They couldn't miss. Whoever touched the ball was scoring. And it almost seems contagious. Changes with the tide. Thank you, DA24. That's my guy. I knew I had someone that could help me out there. He's a good option, but is he worth $6,200 on DraftKings? And is he worth $6,400 on FanDuel?
I think so for a couple of reasons. For one, Eric Gordon's out, so it helps to solidify minutes for the wings on Houston. Covington doesn't really seem like he needs that anyway, but it certainly doesn't hurt. But more than that, I think it's just a good matchup in terms of obviously the pace. But while Memphis has been a pretty decent defensive team recently in terms of overall defensive efficiency, it's come more on the back of them doing a good job at the rim than it has defending the perimeter. And obviously a large percentage of Covington's scoring comes at the perimeter. He also leads the Rockets in rebound chances per game since joining the team. He's tied for Westbrook with the rebounds per game lead at 7. So I think you're just getting enough in the way of rebounding opportunities from him and what should be open 3-point looks here, and it being a pretty weak forward position, that I'm still intrigued by probably 35 to 36 minutes from Covington in this game.
Okay. Anybody else?
PJ Tucker's 3,700. Do whatever you want there. I'm never recommending the guy, especially he's a center on DraftKings. But it is a cheap price tag. Daniel House is cheap and maybe gets a couple extra minutes with Gordon out. The problem you run into is that you do have Jeff Green now. You do have DeMarre Carroll, so not quite a shorter rotation as it was a couple weeks ago when you were getting these like 38-minute games from House.
So the Memphis Grizzlies, if we had until 7, if you and I had 2 hours to do this show, I guarantee you we could spend an hour on the Grizzlies alone.
If we had 2 hours from this point forward, we could probably still not really be confident in how many minutes they're going to play.
Exactly. It's crazy. And the reason I say this, that it's even more intense than last time, is because now you're facing a team that rarely has someone on the court that's more than 6'7". I mean, Jeff Green looks like Yao Ming when he's at the center position for Houston. That's how ridiculous it's become. So what happens with Joval? What happens with Gorgui Dieng? Sure, he played some minutes alongside Joval when Clark went down and against the Lakers, but that was against Dwight Howard and Anthony Davis. We both pointed that out the other day. Does Joval get run off the court? Or conversely, and I want you to take over here, but you got to set the table because there's so much shit going on. Or does Joval dominate them on the glass, worst rebounding team since losing Capella, 4th most points allowed in the paint, and really make life difficult for them? The only way that happens is if they're not knocking down threes at a consistent clip. If they are, you run the big men off the court. You force the opposing team to do exactly what you're doing. It's really tough because based on how Houston's shooting out of the gate can change the entire direction of a game or a game plan for Taylor Jenkins or any opponent for the Houston Rockets.
Right. And the reason I lean toward Valanciunas not playing a ton of minutes here is that we've seen Taylor Jenkins kind of err on the side of taking him off the floor when he's against shooters, basically all season long. Like if you go back and look through his game logs and you find the games where he didn't play a lot of minutes and it wasn't because of foul trouble or blowout, it's because like against the Pelicans, Nicolo Melli was playing center for extended periods of time and Valanciunas came out. Against the Kings, you had Bielitsa playing center for extended periods of time and Valanciunas played like 20 minutes. So it's while he certainly could dominate, it's really, really difficult for me to look at a game against Houston and think, oh yeah, Taylor Jenkins is just going to run Valanciunas out there and see what happens. So I have a 24-24 split between Valanciunas and Dieng at the 5. I think it could be less than 48 minutes. Like you could just get some like Jordan Bell there.
Dude, that was exactly what I said this morning. If Jordan Bell played 18 minutes, I would be the furthest thing from shocked.
Right. I mean, I have Bell in at 16, just getting them at the 4 instead of the 5. But it wouldn't be surprising if you just got less than 48 from Dieng and Valanciunas and Memphis just went really small here. They have the wings to do it. There is no shortage of wings on this team that they could run out there. So I'm not and that's what makes it so difficult to project these minutes. But I think that with the pricing where it is, I'm not really interested in either of the centers because I think there's a lot of downside risk to their minutes, and I don't think the pricing is that appealing anyway. What I do think is appealing is when you get to those wings that naturally should get at least a couple more minutes with Jackson and Clark being out and potentially could get like a ton of minutes. You're looking at a Kyle Anderson at 5K that I think plays 30 plus. You're looking at Dylan Brooks, who's only 4,700, hasn't been playing well lately, but whereas his minutes have kind of been subject to, he's losing some minutes to DeAnthony Melton. He's also losing some minutes to just not really playing that well. I think you get more minutes at the 3 for Brooks now, more minutes alongside DeAnthony Melton. So I'm pretty comfortable giving him like 30, 31 minutes. I think Melton gets 23 or 24, and he's pretty cheap at 4K. Those are the guys that, Josh Jackson, I expect to start. That hasn't been announced yet, but he started the second half when Clark was out last game. He's only 4,500 and probably plays around 30 minutes. I think those are the guys that get the biggest benefit from Clark and Jackson being out in this particular matchup.
Okay. If there was a point in the night where Taylor Jenkins ran out, John Morant, DeAnthony Melton, Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, and Josh Jackson, I wouldn't be shocked.
Wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the closing lineup.
Exactly. And that's just what makes it so difficult. I think Josh Jackson is 4,500. He's getting up there a little bit in price, but if he ended up being in a tournament winning lineup, I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't. He could easily play 30 plus minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I have him in for 30 here. And that's assuming again that he starts. But, I think this is a team where people were talking in office hours with me last night about groups. And this is one where I'm not doing much, like max 1 outside of Valanciunas and Jang, but I'll be doing, like max 2 probably out of, Brooks, Melton.
Yeah. We have Watanabe in there. I'm not saying he's going to, I have no interest in him. I don't think he gets enough, but he's also somebody that could end up getting minutes in a small lineup.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of ways this game plays out. I think that you can't really have too much confidence in any one way that it happens, but I think that kind of mixing and matching these guys, you are talking about a team with a 113 total in a really fast paced game. So I think that getting to these guys and kind of mixing and matching is a pretty good idea.
All right, we got to hurry it up a little bit. We'll be good. The last game, not a whole lot. And
Fernando
hey, if you
starting
guys,
for Dedmon.
Yeah, I saw that. Sorry, who is it starting?
Bruno Fernando.
I don't really want to do much there. There's too many moving parts in that front court. If you guys enjoy the show, the simplest way to support us is hit that thumbs up button and like the video. It helps a lot, especially for exposure purposes. And we appreciate all of you that have, as I say, made us part of your nightly and daily routine, hanging out with us throughout the day and up until lock. Live Before Lock is coming up next, so stick around for that and the 30-minute SuperDraft segment afterwards with 10K to first over there at SuperDraft. So check that out as well. San Antonio and Dallas. It might sound like we have to spend a lot of time here, but we're going to break everything down. But we actually don't need to spend that much time because the DeRozan's a 1.35 DraftKings points per minute guy with Aldridge off the floor. DeJounte Murray even sees a bit of an improvement. His minutes have been interesting. I could see this being a spot where Murray goes out and has a big game and plays 30 minutes. And then Jakob Poeltl is massive chalk for good reason. I don't see me getting away from him. And then Rudy Gay, if he plays 22 minutes, could end up being a great value, but he's the most volatile and risky option on this Spurs team tonight.
Yeah, Gay and Lyles are the two that scare me. The two recent games that Aldridge missed, Gay played 22 in both of them. Lyles, I think you got like 26 and then 16 or something in that range.
Yeah, the one game right after the one where he got a lot of minutes, he was like cut in half. I remember that.
So, neither of those guys are you going to be surprised if they play big minutes. You're not going to be surprised if they barely play. They are cheap, especially Gay. So I think that, basically minimum salary, that's the spot that I'll get to. DeRozan and Poeltl, the clear priorities here. Poeltl's a 1.07 DraftKings point per minute guy this season. He's averaged 31 minutes in 4 games that Aldridge has missed. The actual minutes have moved around a little bit, but he's played at least 22 minutes in all 4 games, 22, 26, 41, and 36 minutes. So, I'm expecting at least like 26 minutes here. And he should very, very easily be able to beat that salary. And then DeRozan, like you said, usage rate up over 33% without Aldridge in games Aldridge doesn't play, and should play big minutes in a game with a pretty high total against Dallas.
GG123 asks Kyle Anderson or Prince on FanDuel. I'm still going Prince there.
Yeah,
what about you?
I'd lean Prince, but I think it's close.
Yeah, it's close, but I do think Prince finds himself in a good spot with Wilson Chandler out, $100 difference. So, okay, top options from San Antonio if you want to rank them for us.
Poeltl, DeRozan, Gay, Murray, Lyles, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, Poeltl, DeRozan, Murray, Rudy Gay, Trey Lyles. How about Dallas? Luka Doncic is the one that stands out to me. It's kind of a wasteland after him.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much Luka and move on. Like the only other guy that I would even mention is Porzingis just because he's so good. But there's so many center options on this slate that it's not a priority. Luka, on the other hand, 10-3 on DraftKings is absurd. He only played 25 minutes in the blowout last game, and so his price tag didn't move. I think he's clearly one of the top plays on the slate.
Yeah, me too. I really like him. You said Porzingis, you're right. Very good player. I don't see myself getting there today. For me, it's mostly Luka and then a slew of San Antonio players. You setting any limits on the Spurs today in terms of who you play in the same lineup, who you'll play together? Rudy Gay and Trey Lyles being one pairing, of course.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't want Gay and Lyles together, and then I'll do the normal guard settings where I don't get Mills and Forbes or White and Murray together.
All right, makes sense to me. Let's go to Phoenix, where the Suns are taking on the LA Clippers. One of the higher totals again on this slate. It's coming at 232. The Clippers with a 119.8 implied total. They're 7.5-point favorites. Another game that opened with them laying 5.5, now 7.5, which makes sense. 5.5 seemed a little bit slim. Let's start with the Suns. The big news here is that Kelly Oubre is out. Dario Saric will start for him. And early in the year is the 16th and the 18th of January. Kelly Oubre was out. Saric started both games, but in one of those, we saw that Cameron Johnson was out. So Aaron Baines actually played minutes alongside Ayton in that one. I definitely don't see that happening tonight. So what are you doing with Saric, and what type of run do you see Cameron Johnson getting in a backup capacity?
I'm expecting somewhere around 28 minutes for Dario Saric. Kind of just trying to balance the fact that there's 36 minutes missing now that need to be picked up, and the fact that Phoenix has been pretty hesitant to run him big minutes lately, it seemed like. So, somewhere in the 28, maybe 30-minute range for Saric, but at 3,200, that makes him a pretty solid point per dollar value. I'm expecting, 26 to 28 minutes from Cameron Johnson as well. It puts him a little behind Saric in terms of projection, since I think Saric plays a couple more minutes, but Saric will also be a lot higher owned. So that's a pretty natural pivot you could make if you were looking to make one. I think that you get big minutes from Mikal Bridges as well, to eat up some of Oubre's playing time.
Okay. DA24, to answer that Joval question, not particularly. To me, there's just too many worries there. And what's really Joval's upside at this point is the biggest concern that I have. So no, not really. Talking about the rest of the Suns. Well, let me ask you this. Is Saric a priority value option for you? Yes or no?
I mean, I have him behind. I haven't made lineups yet. I have him behind Pirtle.
Would he be behind Biyombo in just in terms of real cheap players?
Probably not, because he's a forward, whereas Biyombo's a center.
Yeah, and center's got a lot of options for sure. Anything else? Do you like Devin Booker coming in with that ownership that he's getting right now? He's up there. It's 22% on DraftKings. Pretty significant here against the Clippers.
Yeah, I like Booker and Ayton both. I think that they're both priced down for the matchup against a good Clippers team, but you're still talking about a 113 total. You're talking about usage bumps for both of these guys without Oubre out there, who's about a 22% usage guy. And Ayton and Booker should both play 36 plus minutes, assuming that the Suns are able to hang in this game. So I think that the price tag offsets the tough matchup.
All right. What about the other side?
Not a whole lot there for me.
I have nothing really. There's too many bodies.
Right. They're obviously really good. They're in a good spot, but they're not really cheap, and they're fully healthy for which they haven't been for most of the season.
So nothing really from the Clippers.
Nope.
Me neither. There's too much there. Even now you get Reggie Jackson in the mix. Lou Williams might be playing like 26, 25 minutes per game going forward, and I wouldn't be surprised, especially if these games get out of hand quickly. Free content on the site today. Awesomo's NHL projections are free. So are the SuperDraft NBA projections. If you're heading over there to SuperDraft and you're using that promo code Awesemo to get your $20 in super cash on a $100 deposit, those NBA projections are totally free on the site. So is the NBA strategy syllabus. Check it out, awesemo.com. Boston and Utah. Yeah, I tell you what, the Celtics open. I got this one wrong. I usually try and get bets in the night before on DraftKings because a lot of times they're just wrong. And then I'll get like 2.5 points of movement and feel great about it. Sometimes it works. I had the Celtics at +4, and it went to +5.5. They're at +5 now. So I read this one wrong. But it's also that I've been watching a lot of Jazz, and they have just looked so bad in so many spots where they're primed to win games at home. I just can't buy into this team right now. But a fantasy perspective, it's different. It's just, dude, they look like they've lost their identity right now.
Yeah, they're playing really, really bad. But still, not a really fast team, and you would expect them to get back to being solid defensively sooner than later. You have Boston once again playing without Kemba Walker, but price tags are up on pretty much all these guys. I think that Jaylen Brown at 6,700 looks like the most appealing option from Boston, but overall, just secondary options here when you consider how many appealing games there are on the slate in terms of pricing and guys being out and matchup.
Who are your top options from the Jazz?
Again, secondary options. I think that they do look a little bit better than Boston at their salaries. 5K Mike Conley, who is still in the starting lineup. Royce O'Neal's replacing Joe Ingles, but Gobert at 8,100. Although I'd rather have DeAndre Ayton. You have Mitchell at 7,600, but like I would clearly put him behind DeMar DeRozan, for example. And then you have Conley at 5K. I think probably the easiest guy to get to because there's not a lot of great guards in that 5K range, but overall, just not a game that I'm really interested in.
Any interest in Boston? Close it out.
No, Jalen looks like the best price, but I think that for the matchup and in the context of the slate, the Celtics are more expensive than I want to pay.
All right. So that's it, huh?
Yeah. Also, Cody Zeller active, but not expected to play.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, good luck tonight. Adam and I will be back with you tomorrow on the Deeper Dive presented by
SuperDraft. People, NBA live before lock. Here we go. Wednesday, right? Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Wednesday, February 26th. I can't keep track of days anymore, man. It's too difficult. I am Josh Engelman. Below me, Fast Eddie Fear. We've got 90 minutes to break down this slate. 60 for FanDuel and Draftkings, but the extra 30 for the presenting sponsor of this show, SuperDraft. SuperDraft, where you at on that one? Lofty. Go to superdraft.io, use the promo code Awesemo and get yourself $20 in super cash. I highly recommend you go check it out. Let's see where we're at right now on filling their main contest. They've got the 40K guaranteed jump shot today. $10,000 to first. Only 1,100 entries in there right now. They got to fill 3,800. I promise you, I am confident that's going to be a good spot to put your money today. Even if that contest fills, I still think there's a bit of an edge on SuperDraft. Our SuperDraft projections are free today, but on the off chance that it doesn't fill, anytime you can pay less rake is going to be beneficial to you. Go check that out. Go to superdraft.io right now. Use that promo code Awesemo and check it out. Eddie, I feel like we haven't talked in like a million years.
It's been too long. I don't know if schedule or fate has conspired to keep us apart, but my heart aches for you.
I know the feeling, man. I know the feeling.
Well, I mean, let me tell you, I got a flutter a second ago where you said below me, Fast Eddie Fear, and I'm like, pardon? Like you meant beneath you.
Yeah, that was
on the
that was
screen.
well,
For a second, I was like, wow,
kind of.
that's awfully poor. Yeah, that'll happen.
9-gamer today. We've
True.
been getting a trickle of news over the past 45 minutes or so that has been really weird. Like now Cody Zeller isn't playing. Bam Adebayo has now become a game time decision, which is very interesting for the Heat. Would change the slate up pretty dramatically if he were out.
Yeah, we should discuss that as a hypothetical.
We certainly should. But I think first and foremost, we know where we need to start. Eddie, who is the Fast Eddie Fear rubber stamp play of the day?
Oh crap. Busy days, I never prep for that question. So you've caught me unawares as always. I'll come up with a better one later that's a little more off the board, but I'll go with Luka Doncic.
Ooh, okay. That's not where I thought you were going.
Where'd you think I was going? Gotta go there.
I thought we were gonna go just when you said you'd come up with a better one later. My first thought was just like, okay, you're going Jake Puddle and like.
No, I'm not gonna be quite that pedestrian. I mean, I always consider these questions in the lieu of relative to ownership, which it's tough because these shows can never be, one show suits all, but generally we contextualize it towards multi-entry users and then hope that single-entry users can sort of reverse engineer what is best for them. But Jake Puddle there, as you so adroitly referred to him, is a truly excellent play, and we can spend 5 minutes on that whenever you want. But he's going to be massively, massively owned, and I don't have a strong take versus that ownership. And whenever someone's projected to get into the 70s, and I don't mind it, me specifically, because I tend to hate on the chalky chalk. That's about as good of an endorsement as you're going to get out of me for someone at that level. But for what I imagine we have Doncic's ownership at, we have him around 20%. I would want to have more than that. He is my priority spend up, followed by James Harden. I like Harden well more than Westbrook, so we'll start that as a caveat consideration here. And it isn't this isn't a complicated read, but I spent a lot of time watching the Rockets because being able to correctly predict Harden or Westbrook in a given spot is been pretty useful. I think this year we've had a couple good days, and there are spots that lean one way or the other. Back when it was, sort of the Harden show, if we kick back a month or no, there was some very good money made when we did that twice in a couple of weeks against Portland, which ends up being because of the way they defensively handle him, a really strong Westbrook spot. And Memphis with the system they have run both in past years and this year. Obviously, this year being most relevant when factoring in Russell Westbrook, but it is a particularly brilliant James Harden spot, and it is much simpler, and that just comes down to he can get what he wants and get lots of open threes, and they don't need to deviate to Westbrook as much. So I rewatched plenty of their games from this year, and I just have James Harden taking 26 shots and 18.5 3-pointers tonight because he can get them in good spots, and I do not expect that to change. It's probably a slight negative for me, all the injuries on the Memphis side of the ball, because the type of lineups I think they could run out might lead to a slightly better pressure at the line. But I would still go hunting the top overall score of the night. And for me, that would be going after James Harden. You can get, 85 out of him tonight. Westbrook being around and healthy limits your odds of banging out that 100 that was, possible in the past. But I'll go with Harden and Luka, both of whom we have around 20%. I would try to bump those numbers myself by 50%. I would try to get to 30 and a bit on both of those guys, and probably end up sliding away from near 30% Russell Westbrook we have projected right now, just because there's only so many really expensive guards you could pack into your lineups. So we'll start there.
You this is totally unrelated to the slate. You mentioned Harden shooting 18 threes or whatever. I listened to a Bill Simmons, Shea Serrano podcast about the 2001 or 2002 Lakers Spurs game, at which point the Spurs shot 8 threes in the game. Yeah. And Robert Horry for that series, 0 for 18 from 3.
Wow.
That's the same amount of threes that you're saying that James Harden will shoot today.
Yeah.
Basketball has changed in 20 years, guys.
So much. So much so. It's amazing to think, and we don't have time for this, but a transplant podcast of what players from 1990 would be absolutely phenomenal today and what players from today would be phenomenal in 1990 is always a fun conversation when you get to it.
No doubt about it. I think the first place that we need to start is the place that is, I would guess, scariest to everyone, and that would be Memphis. And I think that people are going to be interested in your take for the Grizzlies. Can this be a Joval game? Is this a game where Joval plays 14 minutes? Is it a game where Gorgie Jang doesn't even play and they start playing Jordan Bell 25 minutes at center? I have no idea how to be confident in this game right now outside of the guys like Ja Morant and Dylan Brooks that are going to play no matter what. Where is your head for Memphis today?
Yeah, I don't have what I feel is a great grasp on the situation. Obviously, there's a lot of variables moving around at the moment and some unforeseen situations here. Sort of top to bottoming it. I have Jonas Valanciunas ranked as a C in cash and an A in tournaments, which is a pretty rare ranking you'll get out of me, but it means I can clearly see this going very badly, or clearly it can go extremely well. I would not end up playing a lot. The price is not so incredibly cheap. You are taking a significant opportunity cost, paying a mid-price center in such eschewing potentially massive upside, even more massive upside centers, and some of the best value on the slate. They've been reluctant to throw giant gobs of time at him when it isn't terribly necessary. And based on what little I've seen out of Memphis this year and the new coach, I think they're a little more inclined to match small than push big advantage in the couple situations I've seen that resemble this one most. So I have to leave him as an A in GPPs because if they decide to go on the Valanciunas game and he plays 30 minutes, you can get 55 fantasy points out of him. I do think that's obviously within the realm of possibility, but it's definitely a matchup I'm concerned with. I would rather play Ja Morant than Jonas Valanciunas.
Agreed.
It's a very strong matchup for him. He's been garbage, so no one's going to really own him. A real dearth of peripherals in a few of these games, which I think is pretty much a small sample size issue. But it's not a team I'm overly excited with, depending what site you look at. I think the minutes can get muddled around. Obviously, Josh Jackson, I expect to get the start. Got the call in the last game, started the second half due to injury. I think that's absolutely fine to go to, but
flat minimum on FanDuel too, by the way.
Is he really? I didn't actually know that offhand. Well, that makes that more appealing. So Josh Jackson would be a priority for me at the flat minimum there. But they're going to muddle around the minutes still quite a bit. There's still going to be 10 healthy bodies to get in there, and I expect that you will still get your 20 minutes out of John Conchar, who is the one super cheapy there, who I still ranked because he's actually shout out Summer League and other stuff. A still pretty productive guy there, but could be a mess. So I don't mind in tournaments if you want to play Valanciunas. I can't imagine we haven't projected much over 6% or something on a slate this size.
We do not.
Gorgie Jang I'd be more confident in, but you are limiting your upside there a little bit. But the minute should be incredibly secure, so he's a safer play. And Ja Morant I really like in this matchup in particular, and also at what I would expect to be single-digit ownership. Josh Jackson priority FanDuel, and absolutely nothing wrong with getting to on DK, where I think he's all 4,500. That is a price he can get on top of. Game certainly could not stay close like many of the games tonight. That would do well for him, as he should be out there chucking a whole hell of a lot as the game moves towards its conclusion. So, not a team I'm like. If I don't see a Grizzly, I'm not super worried. It's a pretty big slate.
The pricing between these two guys, or these two, between the Grizzlies on FanDuel and DraftKings, is dramatically different. Ja Morant is $1,000 cheaper on FanDuel. Gorgie Jang is 700 cheaper. Brooks 600. Josh Jackson 1,000.
Yeah, that changes things a lot. And then you have to consider that it's never been dollar per dollar FanDuel to DraftKings, both due to the vicissitudes and that the markups they're doing at any given time during the year change remarkably, but it also isn't a linear relationship because as you get towards the bottom, the floor on FanDuel is $500 higher than it is on DraftKings. So if you said, I think Dylan Brooks is $600 cheaper, so that'd be $4,100 on FanDuel. It's relevant pointing out that that's $600 over the floor as opposed to $1,700 over the floor on DraftKings. If you do a like a correct currency modeling of the situation, it's not linear dollar per dollar. It gets closer to it as you get towards higher prices.
Right.
But the sites spend a lot of your money for you on a player tax of $3,000 or $3,500 that you have no choice in. So correctly sort of mathing that out, you'd end up with Dylan Brooks costing only $600. And it's obviously he's really had a tale of 3 seasons, if you will. He was garbage for quite a while and then really looked great for quite a while, 5-6 weeks, that I was really impressed with his play and has really fallen off again recently. But certainly Houston is a get right spot. So $4,100 on FanDuel is like, I find that very appealing. $4,700 on DraftKings, I'm more happy to let go. On DraftKings, he got, I believe, a C in cash, which is based, that'd be a B if he'd been more consistent, but he's always been really scoring based, and having your reliance on just one stat makes it a little more difficult to count on you for production. So I had him as a B in tournaments. On FanDuel, that'd probably be a B and an A. $4,100 is a really nice price, and I do think the minute should definitely be there for him. And it's not crazy to think that the usage comes up a little bit as well, with a net loss in usage of the players who remain in the lineup.
Anything else you want to touch on from Memphis?
No, I think that's enough there. It's a nice slate, and I understand people, sort of bargain hunting there and looking at that team as a team to take a big piece of, but especially if they're going to hold any kind of significant ownership. Like, I'm taking a look at our ownership. We have Dylan Brooks at 15% on DK. That's probably a little more than I'd want on a slate this size, but it's not unreasonable. We have Josh Jackson at 14%. I do actually like that a little bit more. I have him projected, I think, actually a hair higher, as weird as that sounds.
He is at 48 on FanDuel, but again, flat minimum. So
yeah, that's and he's a small forward.
Correct.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
that'll do you good. That feels
hard to
good.
have a lot of qualms with that one.
I mean, oddly compelling position there. You have some of the more expensive options, and then some, but it's the thinnest of the positions there. I think today for a number of reasons. So I'm not really surprised that he's up that high. Torian Prince at 45 looks pretty good there.
Yeah.
Some other options. If we end up losing Bam Adebayo, Derek Jones is a nice pivot there at 4,400.
Do we want to do that now? Do we want to get into that now? Okay, so Bam Adebayo was not on the injury report, became questionable, and now game time decision with an ankle, which is really disconcerting because that means he's really going to test that till the tip of the game. Like, they're not, unless it's that bad. If Bam Adebayo doesn't play, Kelly Olynyk is 3,900 on FanDuel, and we are like, he's just going to become Josh Jackson for FanDuel. 4,900 on DraftKings, he's still going to be fantastic. I don't know. I don't think that Chris Silva gets enough minutes to matter.
Yeah, I did not rank him as sort of extrapolating that, and I'm sitting on Kelly Olynyk at double C's at the moment, but he would become double A's for me on DraftKings, and like, I've got it queued up and ready to upload in the event that, I would have Kelly Olynyk at 32 minutes.
Yeah,
is what I ended up projecting him for, which obviously feels fantastic. So
no brainer on Kelly Olynyk if he is named the starter and Bam is out.
Especially for me, because I don't think enough people will get there. Setting aside the content of this show, I don't know what other people are saying in other public medium, but I don't suspect, especially because of the omnipresence of Jake Puddle, I don't think enough people get there.
Yeah.
So, like, I think if it came out right now at 6:18, this is obviously going to change mathematically the closer to lock that news comes out and whether or not a given site has swap. I think that's a 7:30 game. Mm-hmm. So really something to keep an eye on. Have a Kelly Olynyk plan, because I think if that news comes out at right now, I think Kelly Olynyk gets up to like, is he center only on DK?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get there quickly.
I don't know either.
Kelly Olynyk is,
I think he's both.
He has both. He is center eligible on FanDuel. He is center eligible on Yahoo, and just center on SuperDraft.
Right. So, I think he'd get up to, if he went out right now, like on a slate this size, I'll say 18%, maybe 20. I think if it comes, like, I do not think he would get as owned as we'd like to think he would. The forward eligibility maybe gets you like 25 or something, but 4,900 is not an uber cheap price. And I think a lot of people are sitting on the value of Saric and Pirtle and a lot of giant studs, so you get less movement there than you might think. I saw you make a face when I said, I thought he would be in the high teens, but I don't I think if Bam is out right, Bam has not missed a game this year. I'm 99% sure. I'm almost certain Bam Adebayo has not missed a game this year.
Did you happen to read that Bam Adebayo feature that Zach Lowe wrote?
I did. It's
really good.
Really great. Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
No. It's. I think it's great that you refer to other media like that. I listened to this podcast. I read this media because, as much as I like to think of Awesomeo as maybe the best one-stop shop for DFS content, like if you can go to one site today and you need to play DFS, I think this is the best site in the world, bar none.
No doubt.
Giving other people, other options for, like, we'd like to help you with tonight's plays, but we'd also like to, direct you towards other things that can be useful. And more so for me, I think, but for a lot of people, listening to stuff like that and listening to the scuttlebutt lets you predict what coaches are going to do in different situations. And you just read comments about things where coaches in that article are interviewed about Bam, and you get Spoelstra's comments. And so a little bit more. And that can, again, DFS, it just takes one correctly known factoid that isn't well known to win you a year's worth of whatever. So, knowledge is good. But yeah, I think Derek Jones Jr. at that point, I mean, the Heat prices due to their consistent injuries haven't been as juicy as you would like them to be. They're a little bit juiced on everyone from, the guards on down because of absences of Butler, the continued absence of Hero, and so on. So no one else becomes a massive priority for me, but I do think Jimmy Butler also becomes a pretty strong priority there. I don't know what we have him projected at right now, but it would be very, very close for me at that point versus like Luka and Harden and DeRozan. He would fall into that category in terms of projection for me.
16% right now on DraftKings, 8,200, 23% on FanDuel at 7,900.
Yeah. FanDuel is, they have DeRozan at a very nice price. And then, Harden in there obviously is a priority for me, but 16% right now, with Bam in, I think that's roughly appropriate. That number is very good. And I would make that a priority as well. I think some number of people get to Kelly, but also just swapping some exposure or a slot if you're playing a single lineup to Jimmy Butler would feel pretty good for me in the event we get that news. And again, I would go under 50-50 Bam plays. Ankle and midday downgrade to questionable would tilt me on the low side of questionable. Actual questionable, last time we did a good data lookup on this, is pretty close to 50-50. It's not far from it. It's like it's like 52 or something last time I looked. I'd put this one at whatever 44 or something, but I'd say it's more likely than not that he rests than plays in this particular spot. And I want to say Miami is not on a back-to-back. Yeah, Miami, I'm pretty sure, is on an island game. That would move it a couple points for me as well, if you have that handy. But if it was a back-to-back, I'd knock that number down to 41.
Yeah,
but
they were off. They were off yesterday. They are off tomorrow. They're on a back-to-back Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, and by the way, let me tell you, they're losing tonight to the Timberwolves. Going to tilt this team a little bit. They have recent losses to the Cavs. So, I mean, they had a couple weeks there where they're like, we're going all in. We're getting Iguodala. We're getting Crowder. We're getting deep. We're getting nasty. We're good. And then we're going to lose to the Hawks and the Cavs and maybe the Timberwolves. That wouldn't feel good.
As long as the Sixers don't lose to the Cavs tonight, I'll be all right.
I forgot about that for you tonight.
I mean, I'm like 90% to a mustache right now. So the moment it happens, I'm booking a nice little Josh spa day.
What is the exact wager? They have to finish over 500 on the road or at or over?
Above 500 on the road from the time that we made the bet, which was like 6 or 7 games ago. I think they are 1 or 2 and 6 at that point. They have to go. They probably have like 7 left, so they have to go 6 and 1. I think I have 1 loss remaining.
Right. Okay. So they're gonna have to turn it on here. And then Simmons got hurt, so you just must have seen that and has been like, I figured.
The day after we made the bet was when Embiid's finger was jacked up, and I was like, oh, cool, it's over already. It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna have a mustache. It's fine. It's gonna be good for the face. Get a little extra air. It's not gonna be good for everybody else to look at me.
I shave my beard, and the skin under it looks like a pizza. And then I walk out in the sun, and my face, crimples up like something from the Dark Crystal. It gets real bad in a hurry. It's like the sun doesn't catch my flesh. Talk about conversations no one wants to hear about. No. So that game, real quick. I don't hate Josh Richardson. I think he's gone a little bit under-owned.
I have quite a bit on FanDuel right now.
I love it when you and I agree.
5,100 on FanDuel.
52 DK. I have him. Mike Conley is another guy where I think he goes under-owned with what I'm hoping to get out of him. Last game was poop. Got time off the break and then rest off the break. It feels a little bit weird, but he looked really good for like the 10, 12 days before the break. I have no reason not to believe he's not healthy. I don't have. I'm going to like him at the 2% ownership he's going to engender. I'll put it that way. I don't want a ton, but I'd like to get 4 or 5%. I'd probably like to get like quite a bit of Josh Richardson. I like Josh Richardson quite a bit. What's your exposure level on FanDuel?
So we are projecting 6. I have 28.
Ooh,
Yeah.
4 2/3 the field. That's some beats there for you. But the rest of that,
he's having as bad of a season as it gets from a DFS perspective in comparison to where he was previously. And I think that slowly lopping off other guys that handle the ball for Philly can only bring him slightly closer to where he has been in the past. Yeah. And at 5,100, I'm willing to take that risk, but
yeah,
not excited.
Matchup really strong too. I'd be fairly excited. I feel pretty good about the minutes, pretty good about the floor. He ranks a little better for me than let's say Tristan Thompson as far as hitting an upside. He's similarly priced, projects pretty similarly. Thompson has generally done well with Embiid in their, I think, 6 or 7 matchups they've had. He manages to not get in massive amounts of foul trouble, which is a bit of a task with him. Gives you a little more in a fantasy point a minute. Like it's not an incredibly negative matchup for him, which is strange. So I don't like him a ton for tournaments because, again, the opportunity cost at center is massive. Yeah. But as like a cash play, I'd probably rather have Jay Rich, but Tristan wouldn't bother me incredibly at this juncture. What do you think about Porter on the Cavs?
I don't know what to do with that dude.
Yeah. Well, I ask because I don't entirely know what to do with that dude, and you don't want to react to massive game, but he's not, a bad producer. Having Drummond out opens up more minutes for him than I think is immediately obvious because everybody, plays down a step. They've shown a, willingness to get him out there instead of, say, Chetty, who is getting, 24 minutes or whatever now. I don't think I even ranked him. Yeah, it's a thing. I wouldn't expect him to project for brilliantly. It's a big old slate. The minutes are obviously uncertain. If you throw him in there at 27 minutes or whatever you have him projected for, it's going to be hard for that to spike, but they could get crushed. They could crush, in a related story for your mustache. They could put the beat down on, but a guy I'm intrigued by.
So obviously, I'm approaching this through a FanDuel lens where Josh Jackson is the flat minimum. So they're just not comparable in that scenario. So as a second small forward, he's competing with Taurean Prince, who now has Wilson Chandler out, and Kyle Anderson, who could play 30-plus minutes now as a potential small ball 5 for the Grizzlies if things get weird. Yep. So I have a hard time putting him ahead of 2 guys that are slightly cheaper than him. And at that point, I'm just sort of out of small forward eligibility. But at the same time, if you told me that he went out and played 36 minutes or something, that wouldn't shock me either. Small forward's just really tough on FanDuel today.
Yeah, it's amazingly thin for I think we're on a 9 gamer now. That's odd that I don't know that offhand, but it's an amazingly thin position for that. I don't mind $6,600 Tobias Harris, and I imagine he holds a pretty big chunk of ownership there. I'm curious how we have him projected versus Jaylen Brown at that small forward ownership. I'm curious about our small forward ownership on FanDuel. Let's
sure. I can hit you with that right now. We got an ownership update 1 minute ago, so let me grab that and toss it into the sheet, and then I can walk through what we've got from a FanDuel perspective. Because
then let's talk about the Spurs. Let's talk about the Spurs a little bit.
That was the next place we needed to go. Do you see any downside to Jake Puddle today, ignoring ownership? Would you It's basically just foul trouble, right? Unless you think he gets popped. Which,
I think there is a non-zero amount. All right, so where to start? This is the 5th game of the season. I'm almost certain that LaMarcus Aldridge has sat out. He sat out 2 swaths of game, 2 at the beginning of December and 2 at the end of January, I think it was. But most recently, about a month ago, he sat 2 games before that. And in the last of those games, Puddle got popped in against the Jazz, which would be a matchup where you would think, they'll stay, big most of the time. They didn't. They went really small. They played without a center for a lot of that game, where you had Lyle center, Gay center, all sorts of weird center combinations on the court if you go back and take a peek at that game. Mm-hmm. Now, I find that to be extremely unlikely in this case. by extremely, I would say 10-1 or something.
Yeah.
But if you ask me the odds he fails, let's assume I'm giving him an 80% chance of success. And obviously this isn't a strict Boolean yes/no situation, but indulge me for this. I'd say like half the chance he fails is that he plays 22 minutes or something, which I think is exactly what he played in that game.
Right.
I didn't expect it there. They were playing Gobert, who was playing his normal minutes, because again, Quinn Snyder does not deviate and do crap like that, as we've seen against the Rockets a couple times recently. But Pop does do that sort of thing. Now, the reason I'm fairly confident it does not occur in this matchup is that Pop has leaned on his larger matchups against Dallas heavily previously this year. I went back and watched those games and went back and charted their rotations in those games and previous games. And at the decision points where you see more Lyles, less Aldridge, more Lyles, less Puddle, more Gay, less so on and so forth, where he would go small. He did not in any of those games, which were fairly close games. So in a similar matchup with, Kristaps, obviously Powell played one of those games, and there's other variables there, but that gives me some more faith that he plays 30 whatever minutes. I haven't projected for 33 minutes, and that's amortizing all possibilities. So I think there's a chance he plays 36, 37.
Yeah.
But there's a 10% chance he plays 22. Like, it is in the realm of possibilities. I don't think we have confirmed starters.
I don't think
He
we do
has
either.
started all the 4 games that Aldridge is out. I would be very surprised if that isn't what happened today.
Yeah.
So that is a long way around of saying, yeah, $3,200. If he is 70% owned, I don't think that's crackers. That is probably a little more than I would expose myself to, because we've opened up with some other pivots with Saric, who we also have very highly owned, and even Biyombo against the Knicks, which isn't a bad matchup. Like, I don't particularly want to play Bismack Biyombo with an uncertain minutes load, and but he'll outscore Jake Puddle 1 time in 5. I think it'd probably be about where I'd put that number again. And you actually, do you have your tool up?
Yeah,
Like,
I do. So I only have Jake Puddle at 28 minutes, mostly because I didn't need him to show up in 100% of my lineups. He would have done that pretty much anyway.
That's the thing that so you boys, and again, I don't get to watch as much of your content as I would like, you and Adam and Lofty, although I try to on my days off, because I try not to color myself on the days that I'm on. I want to come in fresh, but on the other days, I watch you guys quite a bit. And every time you say stuff like, I haven't projected for this many minutes because I don't want too much, I'm like, but that's not how you should do. Like, every time I hear one of you say that, I'm like, that's not how you should do that. You should project him for as many minutes as you think he's going to play. Not, well, I think he's going to play 31, but I didn't want too much, so I put him at 28. That's not how
if I give him any more than this,
yeah,
then it doesn't really change what I get of him.
Yeah, right.
So it's a little bit easier to like hedge my bets on that one.
No, and I'm not saying. I think procedurally.
Gorgie Jang.
Yeah, no, not Gorgie Jang. Bismack Biyombo. Okay. Gorgie Jang's $2,000 more. Gorgie Jang will outscore Jake Puddle 35, 40% of it, like a bigger number anyway.
I have it 70-30 Puddle
over Jang
or Biyombo.
Really? Okay. I went off the top of my head, 80-20 basically. But that's my point. And if you have Jake Puddle, who's going to be, we'll say 75, and Bismack Biyombo at 8, Bismack Biyombo at 8 is going to be the play you would want if you ran this scenario 1,000 times, and probably not the play you would want if you ran the scenario once, because that's what 70-30 means. But so because of the existence of viable options, and again, a large slate where, just him getting 29 doesn't necessarily mean he's in the best possible lineup, because just a spectrum of other players can come out and get there. 70% still feels a little higher than I would want to get to, but he projects brilliantly for me. I have no real issues with the matchup. I think that's actually a slight positive. Actually a significant positive for me. It'd be like, plus 2.5 on the delta for the way I look at it. It's a really nice spot. So for projection reasons, I guess the only negative I had there was, yes, we did see in a matchup versus Utah, the last game that Aldridge sat, which would have been end of January, so January 25th, give or take 3 days either side. He played only 22 odd minutes and got pulled, and he was just fine in that game in the portion that I watched. So it is a possibility, but again, I did a lot of diligence in going back and watching the previous Dallas games this year, both of which should play pretty similar to this one, and Pop didn't go small in either of those, and there's some method to that madness, so you're probably good. And I'm not going to have I'm not gonna have a strong take if you have 70% of them. I'll be like, yeah, it's more than I would like to have, but I can feel that they went pretty big in all their games against Dallas.
Before we touch on the rest of San Antonio, guys, go check out SuperDraft. Go to superdraft.io. Use that promo code Awesemo. Get yourself $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit or more. The jump shot, the 40K guaranteed, 10K to first contest is at 1,600 entries. They need 3,800. Lock on SuperDraft isn't until 7:30. Eddie and I will be talking SuperDraft from 7 o'clock until 7:30 once we hit the lock for FanDuel and DK. So tune in for that for our full breakdown. But for now, get there and get your entries in. I think that's going to be the best spot in the industry to enter a contest today.
Almost certainly.
Yeah. Let's talk San Antonio. So is it Trey Lyles Day? Is it Rudy Gay Day? Is it Jumetzi Metu Day? Probably not.
That's the cute one. I did not rank Metu at the end. I did not rank Metu or Eubanks at the end of the. We had a number of Eubanks days. Long-term viewers of the show I've pulled out the Drew Eubanks in the past when Aldridge has been out. I don't think that's necessary today because, I would rather play, for example, Biyombo or Tsaric, or there's just other guys on other teams that I think make a little more sense that are already significantly under-owned. Just sort of math and better for me when you're looking at a play like that. Like, I need him to have a massive score.
Yeah.
Of those guys, it would be Lyles for me. If I have to pick the next guy that I think could play, let's say, greater than 25 minutes and put up a score of relevance on a slate of this size, yeah, I would go to Trey Lyles as I'm setting aside DeMar DeRozan, who we can come back to, but of the bargain basement guys, I would rather go to Lyles more often than not in situations similar to this one in both game flow and personnel issues. That's just the way they've gone, and they really seem comfortable. If you look at the first half of the year, you were regularly getting 24, 25, 28 minutes out of Rudy Gay, and they've significantly reduced his role to this point. So, yeah, it's for me, as if I'm going to fire the next bullet there, I would go with Trey Lyles. I can see doing Derek White. That's sort of the next guy in that range I would actually go to. But the priorities for me are Puddle, DeJounte Murray, and DeMar DeRozan. Murray has just enough of an upside open that I'm interested in him in this particular matchup, which I would like for him anyway. DeRozan, I think, is a real priority. I imagine we have him projected top 3, top 4, top 5, somewhere in there.
You would be right. Number 2, 43% owned.
Yeah. That feels fine. We have seen some variance in the DeRozan without Aldridge play, but the various externalities affecting that really aren't present here, and I expect him to be the focal point of the offense. I have him at 27 shots projected tonight. He just maxed out as a
point 3 threes.
Hold on. I want to see if I think he may. Nope, 0. 2 pointers across the board, my friend.
I probably have him for more threes than he's probably supposed to take, but let me look. Now I'm just curious.
Yeah, I actually have him not taking a 3-pointer. I don't know if I've previously made some sort of.
I have him at 1.
You have him at 1. That's ambitious. Let's look at his 3-pointers attempted in recent games. Here we go. I'll just go back in time. Stop me when you're done. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. I skipped 1. That one was 0, 0. 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. He took 1.
Yeah.
A month ago today.
I'm assuming he shoots a buzzer beater.
I really need to go look against the Raptors at home 1 month ago today. He jacked up a 3. Spoiler, it did not go in. Which is simply amazing. Like, we were talking about guys in this day and age.
Yeah.
Holy put him 25 years ago.
Get that man to 1995 stats.
Give us BJ Armstrong and take DeMar DeRozan, please. Yeah.
Mark Price up to.
Oh boy, let me tell you, that's a good one. That man could take a free throw.
I'll tell you what, I shot a lot of threes with Mark Price in every basketball game that existed until he wasn't in the league.
He's on fire. Yeah, that happened. That happened a good bit. So yeah, I don't know what we have DeJounte Murray projected at, but I suspect I'd be a little 9. Yeah, I suspect I'd be a little under DeRozan and a little higher on DeJounte Murray, just for some immediate leverage against the field. If half the lineups are going to have DeRozan, adding up there a little bit. If he doesn't get there, the most likely scenario is that DeJounte Murray does. I think DeRozan gets there, or at least is passable most of the time, so I don't have an issue if you want to match 40-some-odd%. But I imagine I'd have 35 there and 15 on DeJounte Murray or something and split that a little bit. But no, none of those numbers are crazy.
All right, I'm just trying to figure out who we need to hit on that's going to be incredibly important. I think we need to go to Phoenix, actually.
Yeah, that's good goal getting in there.
Tough spot against the Clippers, 112.5 implied total. No Kelly Oubre, which is not something we see a whole lot for Phoenix. Dario Saric inserted into the starting lineup now. Aaron Baines is healthy, which I think is important.
Yep.
How do you see this one shaking out? Dario Saric, pretty chalky, 3,200 on DK. Devin Booker, pretty chalky, 21% owned on DraftKings, 7,900. How do you feel about both of those? How do you feel about Ayton? How do you feel about it all in Phoenix?
I don't see any real issues with the ownership levels that I've seen thus far today. Saric, I think we have in the few games we've seen without Oubre has frequently started. We've seen 24 minutes, we've seen 28 minutes, we've seen 33 minutes. It's not a particularly great matchup. 35% for him again feels a little too high for me. I would rather have some of, I don't know, just looking at our value a little bit. Trey Lyles at 14%. That's obviously $600 more. Biyombo at 12% now. I probably have projected like a 1.5 less. I'm about 1.5 less, so I could see going there. Cody Martin is another guy we could talk about. We have him up at 9%. With the absence of Malik Monk, get well soon. He's probably getting well right now, but that's a different conversation. But
I'm just really curious what it actually was.
I don't want to speculate, and I have no inclination one way or the other. But the Cody Martin should start to get into real time. I am at 29 minutes. Like, that's pretty significant at $3,100, and he's playing. So I don't think people really know about it. Again, click Cody, not Caleb. Cody Martin. But he's pretty good. I mean, I obviously the pace on his team hurts him and the size of the market hurts him, but that team is starting to evolve in a number of ways. Getting Biyombo out there is actually a plus for everyone else on the team. He's not going to be starting, but he should get some very real time, and I have him for like 29 minutes and 22.5 fantasy points, but still $3,100. I expect him to. They're moving into the age of him and Caleb McDaniels, and completely eschewing some of those guys and having Monk out of there. That's a lot of time, so I feel pretty confident he gets his piece. So Martin at 3,100, I'd probably rather get to than Saric as an example. But Saric does project very slightly better for me, I think.
Look, I like Saric. I have him 9th overall on DraftKings. 34% ownership feels about right, but I think we have enough value out there that if you have a guy that you don't like a lot, there's a different spot where you can get to today.
Yeah. I'll do a quick news run while we're at
nothing
a break.
Trickling in. I mean, LeBron is out tomorrow, but
yeah, I saw that.
I saw him being out, and I was like, oh wait.
Oh, great, tomorrow.
I don't even remember looking at the Lakers today. Oh, well, that's because the Lakers aren't on this slate, and I don't need to know that. I hate when they tweet out news in the 6 to 7 window. That's nonsense. Shake Milton starting again for the Sixers, which
that we knew.
Yeah,
it makes him. I don't really want to go towards those bench guys. I would prefer Milton now over Burks or Cork, but I don't find any of them significant priorities at this point. I like Tobias Napier. We should get to that. FanDuel again, by the way, 4,300 there.
Yeah, ruled in as the starter over Ish Smith a little bit ago. I have him.
Yeah, and that upset me because I was going to be a big fan of his today because I was pretty sure they did that. They mentioned 2 days ago and 3 days ago, we got word that they were thinking of moving him into the starting lineup. And if you followed the NBA for any period of time, if a coach says, I'm thinking about putting this guy into the starting lineup, it happens 98.9% of the time. Because otherwise, all you've done is really piss everybody off. Because the one guy is like, well, thanks for just telling the public you have no confidence in me for no reason and not doing anything about it. And the other guy's like, oh, I guess you really don't like me. So it doesn't go well for anybody. So usually when, Brooks comes out and says, I'm thinking of starting this guy, that guy doesn't get started. So 4,300 FanDuel, brilliant. Big fan of the matchup. I am at 30 minutes. That feels pretty good to me. 4,700 DK, obviously not as much of a priority. But I do think a lot of guys in that 4, 5, 6, 7K range get under-owned tonight by virtue of, there's DeRozan and super value and massive studs in great locations. And, well, that builds a lot of lineups. Like half the people put DeRozan in, and then everyone puts in a couple studs and Jake Puddle and another value guy. And so just people who are good prices at $4,500 aren't going to get played on. Jared Allen, like me some Jared Allen. Not a lot of people going to get there again. I won't go through the whole spiel I went through on Saturday or whenever he was a big moneymaker for a couple people, but his struggles were easily understandable, and sometimes it's not any more complicated than he starts and you put him in a great matchup and he gets out there and starts to look good, and so he gets his minutes in place. And all the times that Jordan has taken over, it's been either foul trouble or Jordan went the hell off, which is obviously still going to be possible in a great matchup. Or, they were playing against the Raptors or some situation, and none of those things are the case here. So he'll be higher owned, and he's not $4,300 like he was over the weekend when that worked out pristinely. But he's people have been like, well, he's still only getting 25, 26 minutes. Those were both blowouts. He was going to play 28 minutes in each of the last two games. They were splitting 28 and 20. He played 14 to 10 in the first half of both of those games. Pretty excited about him. And these two teams have only played once this year. It was not long before the break, so February 10th, give or take a day or two. He was very, very good in that game. That was his last good game before everyone got concerned about him because they played, Indiana, Toronto again, what have you. So I like Jared Allen as a piece quite a bit, and the ownership is going to be obviously very nice because some places he is center only, and there be some good centers tonight.
Yes. Why is that not? That's not what I did most recently. Why is it not fixing any of this? That's just annoying. So I ran a backup crunch, which I think that a lot of people should be doing, implying that Bam Adebayo is out. So on the off chance that we get that news in the final 10 minutes, I've got one in the chamber. It's one of those games at 7:30 where you would expect to get that news potentially in that 6:50 to 7 window. So what I was doing was trying to get myself ready for that. I was trying to hit the undo button because it was the only thing that I've done. I started deleting lineups in another Excel workbook. So thanks a lot, stupid Excel.
That's not cool.
That's all I've got.
No, it's not bad. I want to do a show with, I would think you and Alex at some point, and talk about like process stuff and things like, running multiple crunches and backing things up and finding ways to, because I said it before and it sounds dumb, but really, if you can react to breaking news in 35 seconds instead of a minute and 35 seconds, once a year, that is going to make you a relevant amount of money. Maybe twice, maybe 4 times. And it can be the difference between, a profitable year or not. So,
so like right now, I took Bam out. I updated all of the minutes for what I expected to be. Uploaded those projections to Fantasy Cruncher. Changed
Adebayo will start alongside Olynyk, which is who they've been starting. So they're starting the normal lineup. He's starting
Bam in, and I don't have to worry about it. But ultimately, long story short, run that crunch. You can rename crunches. I named this one Bam Out, and now I'll just have that in the background. I'll save it, and I have that in the chamber in case something goes wrong. I don't have to scramble. I've already got it ready. You can't
Draftkings.
You can't be ready for things that like you're not expecting. Like if Russell Westbrook got ruled out right now, you don't have one in the chamber for that no matter what. But in this case, when nothing has happened for a couple minutes, just run an extra crunch. You're just sitting there waiting for additional news to come in. Just get yourself ready early.
I could not agree more. And the better point I want to make is it allows you to also enter or leave contests. Most frequently enter, but something I talk about a ton that I rarely hear anyone else talk about, and it frustrates me, is almost every competitive betting sport in the world requires you to vary the size of your bet to be profitable over a long period of time. So whenever you find yourself in a greater than normal amount of expected profitability, you should bet more. A lot of people say you should wager the same amount of your bankroll every day. I think that's horrible advice. I think that's literally terrible advice. Now, I don't mean double it up every day. If you win Wednesday, double it down Thursday, double it down Friday. No, I'm not saying that. But I am saying have a tool so that if you get Russell Westbrook ruled out at 6:58 and 30 seconds, and you can change all your lineups by 6:59 and 15 seconds, you should spend 45 seconds power entering everything you can. And you should have a process by how you know how to do that as well as possible, because you're going to have still an 18% owned Russell Westbrook in those contests, and your effective rake went from 15% to negative 5% in a second. And if you could fix your lineups and up your amount of Harden and get in some Ben McLemore and whatever the hell, and you still have a minute left, you should have a fire drill for getting more money on the table. So that's the reason why I really like you're having a backup plans, because you can be sitting there going, okay, Bam's out, boom, fire, implement, join contest. Again, not the best example because Bam wouldn't be so superlatively owned that the advantage would be massive, but there it is.
Bit of a wait, why do I have 48% Bam right now?
Okay.
I know, because we haven't projected for 4% ownership. That makes perfect sense now. One addendum to what you were just saying, because it's not as if I disagree. You're going to find it difficult to find enough contests to be able to get in that window. But pay close attention to satellites that aren't going to fill in that scenario.
Oh, God, yes.
You're
totally
not
agree.
going to necessarily be getting that value that particular day, but the most likely scenario, the spot that you can jam into if there is late news and you want to try to capitalize, is going to be in the satellite situation. So you're going to get paid off on that down the road, but those are the contests that are most likely to be out there that exist that have not filled yet.
I have not one but two friends who were playing, one of which you could probably guess, but who were playing for $20, $50, $100 a night less than 2 years ago. And I said to them, look, I want you to start doing this. You're playing on FanDuel. Look at their closing contests as they close, because I used to make so much money by getting in satellites that are 5 out of 11 filled, 28 out of 40 filled, where the extra value is massive. So just sit there at 6:59. If no news is breaking, I have 4 monitors going, so I have news on one of them. But the other one, I would be sitting there on FanDuel going, join this, and getting satellites that are 70% filled. Each of those guys went from playing double digits a night to now playing tens of thousands of dollars a night. Or at least thousands of dollars a night, because they eventually spiked one of those. They satellited for enough things, qualified for enough things. They eventually got a $600 entry, came in second. They've rolled it into a really significant bankroll, bigger bankroll than actually I was ever running, humorously enough. So, that really is a dreams come true type thing. So especially if you're looking on a budget, just be sitting at more FanDuel than DraftKings, in my experience. Now, my experience is a bit antiquated, but that's where I tended to see more satellites that weren't filling entirely. I don't know if you can confirm that or have the same impression.
I only really pay attention to it on the FanDuel side, so I couldn't really speak to it. And there are constant, wide open satellites.
Constant. Late slates too. Late slates another, since we're talking about process, late slates, pay attention when news comes out. Oh my God, because main slate, people react fairly well. Late slate, you just get dead stuff. If you got Bam Adebayo out at 7:15 for a 7:30 game, half his ownership hangs sometimes. It is crazy. And people don't like double swap and triple swap appropriately. There's much more simple swap because people are just not locked in anymore. So they're just like guy out, guy in. And less, well, let me get this guy in and this guy in, and this guy has a better matchup now. And now, Bam is a much better defensive center than Olynyk. So I have to look at this. Like people just go, all right, out, same price guy.
Yeah.
So
is there anything that you don't think we've touched on? We've got 7 minutes to go before the FanDuel DraftKings lock. I want to make sure that we're not missing anything. Do you have a more nuanced answer to who is the Fast Eddie Fear lock button play today?
I guess not.
Metaphorical lock button, I guess.
Yeah, obviously. I guess I talked about, all of the. No, I'm fine. I have lots of little more of this. I'm scheduling it by looking at ownership, which is what I'm always doing because that's where it's relevant. Only guys who I think I would take let's look at ownership again. Let me hit a refresh here. We'll take a look and start at the top and pop down. I'll see if anything jumps out at me as wildly unreasonable. I would probably have more Ayton. I like the spot for Ayton quite a bit, and his price has descended to a reasonable range. I think his ceiling is opened up a little bit by Oubre not being there. At their current ownerships, I would rather have an Ayton share than a Booker share at the moment. I have no issue with 24% Booker. His price under AK makes that have a pretty safe floor. Matchup, obviously not ideal. Hard to like any of the Clippers in that situation. Biles, Yambo, we have come up a little bit. That's fine. Jackson, 8 measures. And no, there is no one who's super low owned who I feel like, getting on top of. We didn't touch on Trae Young, but it's because I don't have like a ton to add necessarily to the situation. Like this is the final matchup between those two teams. He blitzed the bejesus out of them when they were in their super Saiyan defensive mode at the beginning of the season. He went off on them in their first game. It was a really impressive. I remember watching him and being like, okay, this is a tough matchup, and I know what they're going to do to him. I want to see if he can handle this. And he dropped, I think, 39 real in a line after that. So while I think he might be slightly overrated, that can be a 701 conversation.
Yeah.
He's I love watching him play basketball, and he's incredibly good. But no, the other guys on a slate of this size, I want to say again something that I've mentioned a couple times this week, that ownership is less important other than the top 14 players than it would be on like a 4 or 5 game slate, because you're just talking about the difference between 4, 7, and 8% ownership.
None of that matters.
At that point, you want the guy with the most fantasy points. Yep. Like, sure, I'd rather he has 4 than 8, and that's a fine tiebreaker. But reacting to currently 78.2% Jake Puddle. Okay, that's a very, very large number, is an incredibly relevant thing to consider in building your lineups. Whether or not you want to be over under Tristan Thompson's 7%, if you're at 5 or 10, I will say I like separating when possible.
Okay.
Like if he's at 7%, I generally do not like matching the field. I think every time you match the field, you're sort of surrendering the ability to make money.
I guess we didn't touch on this. Now that Bam is confirmed in,
yes,
how do you feel about him against Minnesota? 8,900 on FanDuel, 9K on DraftKings.
That's a really good point. It's just ankle. Like we have to guess what he's going to be owned at. So I don't know. We haven't projected for it, but it doesn't really matter because that's an incredibly hard thing to gauge, I think. But I have a feeling we haven't projected for like 4 or 5% ownership. So
what I'll say is this. We have him at basically 4 on both sites. He was at roughly 20 earlier today when prior to becoming questionable. So right. I'm guessing, somewhere in that like 12 to 18 range is probably where he really ends up. I don't know if we're going to get an update in the next 5 minutes or so. So my guess would be somewhere in like the teens, I think is safe. Particularly on FanDuel. On DraftKings, it's probably like 8 to 12 if I had to guess.
FanDuel, is he still power forward? Or
$8,900 power forward.
They really got to stop doing that. I guess Kelly's starting at center. Anyway,
they're both
if your number is correct, I feel like that's around the right number.
Okay.
Maybe even a little high. Now I'm going to take the under on your number. That's a 7:30 game, I think, so we can actually check it right before we leave. But on DraftKings, I'm gonna put Bam Adebayo on 8.5%.
That's fair.
I think there are a lot of other options. Specifically, Ayton just slots in and feels pretty good, and the one real matchup advantage for that team is at center for them. And I just think ankle scares enough people, and it's a big slate. So I'm gonna even on DraftKings, I think that number descends 2 single digits. At which point I do think I'd want to have a little bit more, but I don't have a strong take there because you're dealing with possibility of a blowout, possibility of an ankle blowing out. There's just a lot going on there. But,
I like him a lot on FanDuel at power forward.
I definitely like him more there
because he should eviscerate Minnesota.
Yes, they're incapable of handling him. Yeah. And he's, what'd you say, 89 or something?
8,900. He's $200 cheaper than Jason Tatum.
Than Tatum, who's going to have. Yeah, I was about to say. I know Tatum is in that ballpark. I think that's nice. And
I have him as my highest projected power forward, not named Kawhi Leonard, and I feel like Kawhi just kind of exists today.
Yeah, I in the FanDuel placeholder, which is here somewhere that I built earlier today, my power forwards were Jared Allen and Bam Adebayo. So yeah, really important question to bring up there. I have often posited, and I feel like this is. Hold on a second, I got 2 alerts, and I want to.
You're good. 45 seconds, guys. If you don't have your lineups in, stop listening to the stupid stuff that I'm saying and put them in instead, and then come back at 7:00:01 and talk about SuperDraft with us. But yeah, get your lineups in. That is the most important thing that you can be doing right now. I promise you.
For me, it's checking news, but yeah, get your lineups fixed. No news of relevance. we're good. They are starting. Naz Reid, Osman is going to start again at the 3. There was some chance you saw whatever Nance Porter silliness there that is not coming to pass. So no critical breaking news to fix.
I'm going to pull up the DK Big Jam so we could hit on some ownership right out of the gate. And then we will dive into our SuperDraft analysis as we try to get closer to the SuperDraft lock at 7:30. Also, coming up after this, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, PGA Live Before Lock. Jason Roslin, Jeff Ulrich filling in for Ben Rasa, who's going to be en route to Florida for like the, I don't know what it's called, the DFS Open, wherever all the DFS touts and golf people are playing an actual round of golf in Florida this weekend. So no Ben on Live Before Lock for the first time, I believe, ever.
Do you ever golf?
So I used to golf all the time. I was actually on the high school golf team.
Really? What'd you get your handicap down to?
I am terrible. Absolutely garbage at golf. It was a really great time to be able to play free golf and to walk around with my friends and smoke cigarettes. That was high school for me. No, I was never any good. I was like, functional.
And what sucks is you live in golf nirvana.
I do, and I never golf now. So I was originally from Pennsylvania. I played because we were allowed to play our home course for free. So I just had infinite time to play golf. It was fun. Then once I got into college, golf became a really expensive hobby to have when I had no money. Not nearly as important to me as drinking was. So I stopped golfing. Then I moved down here and just never brought my clubs or picked it back up. But now I can afford to golf again. I just haven't. So it's on the short list of things that I want to do that I used to do. I mean, I would play each summer of high school between every single year. I would guess that I would play 80 to 100 rounds of golf.
And you're still bad.
Terrible.
But your
like
lungs are
86 on our home course.
Oh. All right. It's 2 digits. That's a good start.
Not a difficult course. We weren't exactly playing Augusta National there. It was a garbage golf course that rarely had actual grass.
Nah, it's good times. I had a close friend in Rochester 12 years ago, and that was the one year I played a ton of golf. We played, I don't even want to guess, 150 rounds over a summer. Like, we averaged more than a round a day.
Yeah.
We played 54 multiple days because we were both up at the crack of dawn, and 6:05 my text ready, and I'm like, yep, here we go, get in there and hit there, and just other people are walking onto the course when we were finishing our 36 in 4 hours and 10 minutes. So
the last round of golf I played was the morning of a friend's wedding. Everyone in the groom's party or the bridal party had tee times. We had 5:30 tee times. I shut the bar down the night before, so I was on 3 hours of sleep. I played 2 holes. I hit my tee shot on the 3rd hole into the trees. I threw up on the tee box, and then I went and slept in my car.
My sister's wedding, they had a long drive championship. They had a long drive thing. It was on a golf course, and you could play if you wanted, but they had a long drive championship. I won the long drive contest of the 48 non-golfing men and women in the bridal party who were present at the wedding. So I took that one down. So that was yeah, I like some golf. I hate sporting alone.
Yeah.
So like I'm never gonna get up and walk out and play golf by myself. And I'm terribly antisocial at this stage of my life. I live in the basement, so I'm never, I don't have any actual real life physically present friends with whom to sport. So I never get out. But one of these days I'll meet someone who likes to golf and play just a billion rounds again some year. I miss it. Clubs are right there.
I miss it as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna come visit you. We're gonna go play golf and live stream it.
Plenty of places to go in the state of North Carolina or in South
Carolina. You are in golf heaven, my friend.
Yeah,
that Mid-Atlantic.
We can be.
So we have 2 or 3 7:00 games because I'm struggling with ownership. I feel like
we have 3. I'm pulling it up now. Every time I click on the link to the Big Jam, it's not giving me the actual link. So
the Big Jam. There. What a creatively named tournament.
I'm trying to get there.
I'll just keep thinking about it. So we have.
All right, I got it now.
We have Charlotte, New York.
We do.
Washington and Brooklyn and Philadelphia and Cleveland. Okay, I got the games now.
Okay, I've got the DraftKings contest standing, so we're going to open that up. Immediately after taking a look at the current ownership on DK, we will be talking SuperDraft, probably building a lineup. You guys want to get over there now, superdraft.io. Promo code Awesemo will get you $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit. Their jump shot, the 40K guaranteed 10K to first contest, half filled right now. Just get over there, guys. I promise you. This will be the most beneficial contest that you can get yourselves into today.
Yeah, it sounds, I'd say this once a week or once a month or whatever, but playing DFS is a competitive enterprise. You start at minus 15% trying to pay off that rake, and not being an idiot is worth about 5%, I like to say. Having accurate projections is worth a few more percentage. Watching some basketball, doing whatever, you're climbing up that hill. But when you started, +7 instead of -15, it's a hell of a lot easier to make money. So like there is contest selection is massive no matter what. But days when there's overlay there is going to be your best expenditure, full stop.
And SuperDraft projections are free on the site. Go to Awesemo.com and browse yourself to them, and you can get yourself in.
That's great. That will help inform our conversation shortly.
It certainly will. There are 10 guys in double digits. Not a lot of them significant.
I have a better. Yeah, I was about to say I got a lot of guys at like 15 in my head. Okay. If I don't have to get them in order, this will be easy because I'm sitting here. I have like 7 guesses.
There is no need to try to get these in order.
Okay, here we go then. In no particular order: Shabazz Napier.
Yes.
Bradley Beal.
Yes.
Joel Embiid.
Yes.
Al Horford.
Yes.
Josh Richardson.
Yes.
Tobias Harris.
Yes. 4 to go.
Bismack Biyombo.
Correct.
Karis LeVert.
Correct. 8 for 8.
Not Jared Allen. He won't get 10.
Jared Allen, 11th.
So not.
You're good. He's the first guy out.
Karis LeVert.
You already said it.
Damn it.
Doesn't make you wrong.
I was going through the Nets again. Yeah, I was right twice. Yeah, they're playing the Wizards. They always pop. Oh, Taurean Prince.
9 for 9.
Oh, Jesus Christ. The pressure now. God damn it. I don't want to waste time on this, but I really want to.
I am going to make this even more difficult on you. This guy that you are about to get is number 10.
Okay, so exactly 10%. Okay. I think everyone's too butthurt for it to be Rozier or Devontae Graham. That's my theory there. I don't think enough people trusted Thompson in this matchup, so I'm excluding those guys, which leaves me Garrett Temple, Cody Martin, Spencer Dinwiddie. Not going to get to the Cavs guards guy. It's one of those 3 guys. Am I right? It's one of those 3 guys.
Yes.
Martin, Temple, or Dinwiddie. It's one of those 3, right?
Yes.
God damn it. I'll say Spencer Dinwiddie.
10 for 10. Look at this, man.
I'm out. That's it. Good night, everyone.
A tan.
Play.
Tan.
That's what happens if I can talk out of one side of my head and just talk about golf and bullcrap for 5 minutes and work on it. Then that's pretty easy. You had a couple dead teams. That was fun. Here we go. I'm retiring. The segment
Jared Allen at 11, or Jared Allen is 11th. Cody Martin 12th. They're both at 9%. That could have went pretty easily either direction. Bismack Biyombo 23.
Whoa. Okay. I would dislike that all of a sudden.
Sure.
Like that's I'd be like, that's a. Yeah, that is a player who actually had the lowest usage in the NBA for a year once. He was packing a hot 3.7% over like a 5-month period. It was exciting. On his first, ironically, on his first go through with Charlotte, I think is where that stat came from.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back at desk. Let's see.
Shabazz Napier 19, Bradley Beal 17, Joel Embiid 15, Taurean Prince 15, Al Horford 14.
I don't want to take a ton of time, but look at FanDuel real quick. Like, take a peek on just the stuff that's there, because the Shabazz Napier number is where I'm really fascinated. We have 4,300 on FanDuel, which is especially obscene, and then we'll pound SuperDraft hard for 10 minutes. I'll pretend it's Valentine's Day and SuperDraft. No, I'm not gonna do that. But
Rich 7.
Nice. That's gotta feel good for you. And by the way, nice job ownership projections. Who had him at 6 or 7?
Julius Randle 18.
That's about right.
Tobias Harris 50.
Yeah. I said that Harris. They're going to go to Harris over Brown was what I thought at small forward. That those were going to be you were going to really have Harris, Brown, Josh Jackson be 150% of the 200% ownership there. So.
I have a bit less than that.
Yeah.
What else we got here?
I was just curious, Shabazz Napier. I would think also.
I gotta find him first.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I was going to say probably actually not that high. The more I think about it, because there's obviously a lot of stuff to do there. I would think 20 is.
I don't have much of him, so finding him is going to be more difficult.
Don't worry about it. We can move on.
They don't make it easy on you, you know.
That is true. FanDuel, you've been doing this for a decade or so. Maybe CSV download for transparency and ease of use.
Napier, I have one. Napier 16.
I like that. I'm a pretty big fan of that.
I have 2.
You have 2%.
Yes.
What's your point guard exposures? Now I have to follow up.
I'm very heavy at the top. So I'm over the field on Russ. I'm what I think is over the field on Russ, Luka, Trae Young, Ja Morant. So I'm heavier at the top end.
Okay, that makes sense. It wasn't like I
also
disliked.
Didn't know how many minutes to go to on Napier.
Yeah, I had 30, I believe, in my most recent run through and making my guess at that. But I feel like
I gave him 25. I treated it more like the Ish Smith Isaiah Thomas split.
Right.
And
there's been a slightly better of these two guys playing next to each other, and he's been getting a slightly better bench run than we were getting out of IT2 in that same situation. So that was part of the reason I kicked it. But I did that in a huff when he was announced as a starter. I didn't do a deep dive, so it wouldn't shock me if I went back and ended up at 28. But I didn't have 10 minutes to throw at the one question.
Time to talk a little. Let's talk some SuperDraft. I got my SuperDraft projections here in front of me.
I'm gonna hold on. I think I can grab a column from this and actually take mine and give you SuperDraft projections, because I've been trying to make myself more SuperDraft friendly. So
there you go.
Here we go. We got that. There's my this. Here's their scoring with both the bonuses. Now take this.
Any guesses as to who my top SuperDraft play is for today? Obviously, you don't know the multipliers off the top of your head, but
I'm actually cutting and pasting the multipliers right now, and Matt, so it's directly in front of me.
Okay.
I will say your top SuperDraft play for the day is Here's mine. Then how do you and I differ? Okay. I will say your top SuperDraft play of the day is Bam ended up playing, so that'll knock Jimmy Butler out of what I think would have gotten there for me. I gotta adjust that. I'll say your top. You're asking me your top projected play, counting the multiplier.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. I'll say you have DeMar DeRozan.
Ooh, it is not DeMar DeRozan. He is quite a bit lower, actually. DeRozan is 12th for me.
I'm 4th.
He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9th for Alex. I actually have Jake Puddle, 1.8x multiplier.
Yeah, that's fine. I have Jake Puddle 5th. So
okay. Jake Puddle is 4th for Alex. So I think that it is safe to say this much. Jake Puddle would be our center.
Right. Oh, yeah. My next center is I have Gobert, then Ayton, neither of which are bad, but 7 and 8 points respectively behind Puddle. So
actually, let me pull up my sim. So I built a SuperDraft sim to tell me how often someone will be a top 10 scorer on SuperDraft. So
nice.
I'm gonna run a quick 1,000. What's the word I'm looking for? 1,000 1,000 samples. 1,000 iterations. Iterations is how I actually have it labeled in the sheet. So let's do 1,000 iterations of my SuperDraft projections. You can go to I'm going to paste the link into Slack right now. You go here, I believe. I don't know why I said Slack. Paste it into YouTube, rather. If you go there, you should be able to get our SuperDraft projections, which are free today. So I'm going to run the 1,000 entry sim right now. Take a second to load that up. But yeah, Jake Puddle did appear to be the most likely top 10 player, but we'll see how that shakes out once this is done. Takes a couple seconds.
You know who I'd really like on SuperDraft? Bam Adebayo. He's a forward.
He will be largely unowned, I would imagine.
Right. That's my... I have him. I'm curious where you and Alex have him. I have him at my minutes projection at 10th.
I think I'm going to be a little bit lower than that. It looks like he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I can just do different math. Like 18th or so.
See, there's column numbers on the left, and then you can subtract.
That's once I started counting, and I was like, oh, I could just do this math.
Like I got a feeling you have an 18 and a 1, and
yeah. Well, everybody starts in column or in row 4, so it was a little bit different. But that is what I counted, or that is what I realized once I got to like 12 or whatever.
My number 1 player is James Harden.
Ooh, so in my sim, in terms of guys that show up in the top 10, it is not Jake Puddle. It is D'Angelo Russell.
Interesting. I have number 6, so I'm not far behind. These guys are pretty dense, I should point out. Looking at my top player to my 10th player, it takes you from about 62.5 fantasy points to about 57 fantasy points. So they're packed in there pretty good.
Russell actually showing up second in Alex's projections.
Wow. Okay. Well, you both have him slightly higher than me, but again, if I gave him 3/4 of a point, he would be second for me. So
yeah. I had him 38.5% of the time showing up in the top 10 overall scoring. Just behind, 39.1. 38.5 would be Jake Puddle. Perpetually overrated by me, Donovan Mitchell showing up third.
I am 9th.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7th for Alex as of right now. Again, you can get those projections for free, and you should really make your way over to superdraft.io. Use the promo code Awesemo. Get $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit. There are 2,200 entries into their jump shot contest right now. 3,800 is what the max is, so 1,600 to go in the final 13 minutes. Guys, there is going to be overlay in this contest. We said it before. I'm going to say it again. This is the best place that you can put your money anywhere in the industry today, bar none.
Yeah, 12 minutes to go. You said 2,200 in?
23, 28 of 3,800. Ooh, up to 24.40.
Oh, so now people are taking advantage of the value.
Oh yeah. People, I guess a lot of people get in after 7 o'clock. Surprise.
No, that would make sense, and I think that's a very clever marketing niche they've created themselves. But if it gets up to, let's say, when it hits 2,500, that would still be 33% overlay, because that is exactly taking in 30 grand and paying out 40 grand. So
yeah, they need 33 to be neutral.
Right.
I've got James Harden 4th.
Interesting. Who's your top? Wait a minute. Russell
top. James Harden is tops for Alex.
Interesting. He's tops for me as well. I have him at.
We are quibbling. The difference in actual projection is Harden at 57.7 or 57.7. Russell at 58.7. They are between 36 and 39% in the top 10. So.
Now, it's interesting because I have them both about 4 fantasy points higher, and if I'm correctly looking at Alex's, so does he. Yes. So it's interesting that we're both interestingly higher on them, just both.
I am, generally speaking, in my experience, slightly more, I guess I don't want to say pessimistic. I probably regress to the mean a bit more aggressively than most people I've seen in the industry.
Well, minutes is really tough. One of the reasons, one of the only benefits I ever found of putting in the time of doing my own projections was I felt like I had a better read on minutes than a lot of people, because it's one of the things you can pick up by watching a lot of basketball, listening to a lot of coaches, like really trying to do your legwork. That was one of the only areas of it, because, rates and other things are really kind of hard to screw up. It's fairly predictable.
True.
So it's interesting. We could back test it. I would be kind of curious how frequently, like, if you checked your SuperDraft projections versus, because in theory, if you're going to be wrong most of the time, everyone's wrong most of the time, but you should be over about as much as you're under. So it'd be interesting to, collectively store the data for a while and then back check and realize, wow, I am constantly over, or you are constantly under. Again, we're looking at a 1-day sample here. Maybe tomorrow you'll have your top guys a couple points higher than me, but that's another useful process thing to do, to go back and try to figure out where you could be wrong. And it wouldn't take, more than a few weeks of data. You could go back and look and be like, oh, okay, I under projected 81% of players. You'd be like, okay, I need to change something up somewhere.
Absolutely. So here's my, let's see, you can make a 7-man lineup. My top 7 is Russell, Puddle, Mitchell, Harden, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Jimmy Butler.
So let's talk games. Mine is fairly similar. And again, I have to eschew, I have a number of centers close to the top. So if I go with Puddle, like I almost want to separate from Puddle, because I just have a feeling like, I don't know. I'm curious where you think the ownership lands on him, because I like Puddle a lot, but I have him projected not that much better than Gobert. Ayton, Vooch isn't that much further behind for me.
Yeah, I have Ayton and Gobert really close. Alex has Gobert 5th overall.
Wow.
So
but
one
that's still
spot behind Puddle, basically a half point behind, not even that. So I would guess that Jake Puddle is crazy chalk.
Right, that's what I'm saying. In that lineup, if your projection difference is half a point, then I'll play Rudy Gobert. It's interesting in that because SuperDraft is a new and innovative and expanding company, they're engaging in a lot of marketing right now. So a good deal of their player core comes from this site and other sites of this nature. So if you had access to the projections on this site and potentially other sites upon which they do significant marketing, playing Rudy Gobert, playing the guy who is a half a projection point lower is like the smartest way to do it. I'd be like, here's the top, you get 3 guards. Here's the top 3 guards. I will always play the second group of 3 guards, because so many people from this site or some other site are just looking at, top 3 projection guard. Well, no one's going to have the 4, 5, and 6. And again, looking at my projections, like the 4th, 5th, and 6th guys are projected for an average of 3.5 points less than the top 3. So it's interesting that would be a fun way to come up with a divergent lineup.
Yeah, like I have Jake Puddle finishing as a top 10 overall scorer on SuperDraft, 38.5% of the time.
Yeah, I was going to say 30 something. Okay.
Yeah, I have Ayton 27 and Gobert 24. I would guess that the discrepancy in their ownership is way bigger than that sort of.
Right, and there's a fun. It's not quite an inverse proportionality, but there's a fun math problem with at what level of discrepancy between the ownership is it correct relative to the different projection, assuming your projections are perfect, and that has to do with the standard deviation on that player, and even has something to do with the payout structure in the tournament.
Yep.
Like in first place in this tournament is 25%, which is fairly significant. If first place is 16%, you actually end up being become slightly less intelligent to be contrarian. So it's a fun, very, very complicated like regression analysis of multivariable, big words jargon here.
They are up to just shy of 3,100 entries right now. 3,800 fills that contest. So you have
bad.
6 minutes, 38 seconds to go. They've got about 800 or 700 spots remaining. Go to superdraft.io. Use the promo code Awesemo. You can get a $20 bonus on your first $100 deposit or more. This contest is $12 to enter. So if you deposit $100, you're basically getting a free entry. You get tossed one into their 4-point play. That's an $1,800 contest as well. Throw a couple into their dollar entry contest. That's still got some spots. That's a decent look for you. I can't complain about it.
I just got a nice tweet. Eddie, you are trash. No one should ever listen to you. Shabazz Napier is terrible. Now, I haven't looked yet, but I'm guessing he's not having a good, I don't know, might have been a quarter. Someone is really upset about Shabazz Napier's first
There's
quarter.
5 minutes left in the first quarter.
Okay,
Shabazz
so half
Napier has 1.5 FanDuel points. Jan Mahinmi with 12.
Eh.
Taj Gibson is the leading scorer on FanDuel right now. So where were you at on that one?
Yeah, I'm dreadful. I can't believe.
I think it's embarrassing that you didn't have Taj Gibson as an AA in your rankings.
I get that. You get some weird ones. I got some very, very weird ones. Like,
I would be in
literally-
AA if I had Taj Gibson today.
He's a front court members on that team. He'd be 5th for me.
Yeah. I'd be more likely. No, that's not the right team. I'd be more
Mahinmi-
likely to
not
play
crazy.
Mike Miller.
Yeah, Mahinmi not crazy. I could see you play Mike Miller. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mahinmi not crazy.
No. Taj Gibson being at the top of the points list right now, which obviously isn't going to hold. But ooh, that is news that we didn't want. Morant, Melton, Brooks, Anderson, Valanciunas.
Oh, gorgeous. Get yourself some Melton.
What? So what if you got yourself
Melton's a per minute beast, and I don't think he suddenly gets 33 minutes, but I think he gets 26 and a half, 27 or something like I'm going to project him for. It's kind of interesting for me. Morant, Melton, Anderson, Valanciunas, Brooks.
Yes. No Josh Jackson in there.
Yes.
I don't mind so much on FanDuel. Like, don't get me wrong. I have all of the Josh Jackson.
Jackson. Yeah.
His price makes it so I don't care. He's still playing.
Yeah. I wouldn't be concerned on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, Anthony Melton feels pretty good for me, and any number of other guys who aren't Josh Jackson, because you're catching a minutes floor now.
Yeah.
So Kyle Anderson starting at the 4. That's good for him. I think I had him at a C and a B. That would probably bump him up to double B's or something for me. I think it's $5,000 on DraftKings, so not like it's a super priority or anything. It's still slow-mo, still Kyle Anderson, but D'Anthony Melton, I think, is like $4K on DraftKings, and he's if not consistent, pretty close to it. Like, he's a real guy. If he got consistent minutes, I would be a big fan all the way back from Phoenix and Summer League and all kinds of other stuff. Real crap the last couple games. Jesus, what's going on with you? I just went to his game log and I'm like, wow, that was a poor statement looking at the last 2 games. Look at 24 minutes. I mean, Lakers and Clippers. It's the LA trip, so ain't nobody going to look that good, but still, do something. Jeez. But you go again before that, 23 minutes, 42 fantasy points, 26 minutes, 22 fantasy points, 11 fantasy points at 21 minutes, 21 and 23, 32 and 28. Like, he's generally a pretty productive guy, and Houston is a pretty nice matchup. So 4K for that would have some appeal for me.
One last plug: the jump shot at SuperDraft is about neutral right now. 3,300 entries. 3,800 fills it. But for right now, 2 minutes, 20 seconds to go. While there may not be full-on overlay, you're certainly paying reduced rake. Go check it out. SuperDraft.io. You got to get it in now. Projections are free on Awesemo.com. If you enter the promo code Awesemo when signing up, you can get yourself $20 in super cash on your first $100 or more deposit. Super chat coming in from Andrew. Eddie, Melton worth a shot over Rubio on SuperDraft.
I got to look at their numbers.
I can tell you that Ricky Rubio has a 1.55 multiplier, and he is currently 10th for me. I'd be very surprised if I got Melton north of 10th overall.
Yeah, I can't imagine that I would. I had him previously with a projection of about 26 and about 24 minutes. If I rerun this, I'm going to get him at about 27 and 30 in his multiplier. No, I got to stick with Rubio. Like, I like Melton quite a bit, but this boosts his projection modified to like 50 or 51 for me, and that's not going to compare to Rubio, who I have getting into the mid 50s. So worth a shot. It's tough for me because I don't know how frequently people down ticket that sort of scenario. Like, I don't think it's egregious, but I couldn't recommend it you'll be the only one with Melton in the tournament. I'll put it that way. You'll literally be the only one with D'Anthony Melton in the contest, probably.
Yeah.
Or at least
not a lot of people are going to have him, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's true.
2 minutes. Nope, 40
Oh, no.
seconds. They got 34.40 in there. So it's going to come pretty close to filling, but you're going to get some reduced rake, and that's what you should be looking for each night when you're playing. Anytime you can shave a little bit off the top, it's going to be beneficial in the long run. You might not see it today, but you'll see it when you load up wherever you track your results at the end of 2020.
It happened many times. And congratulations. And good job, you guys, filling that sucker up.
Yeah. 34.50 right now with 20 seconds to go. And then there was an ownership you wanted to see for the.
Oh yeah, we wanted to see Bam.
Okay.
I said I thought Bam would hold under 10% on DraftKings, and you thought he would be into the teens. So I'm just kind of curious where we ended on that.
We will find out momentarily because Lock is here for SuperDraft. They ended up getting to 34.79, so like 350 short. So you guys are saving a little bit of scratch if you were able to get in there. Let's pull up the updated DraftKings ownership.
That's like 41.6 in, 40 out, so about 4% rake, somewhere around there.
That is as good as it gets in the industry.
Yes, quite so.
All right, let us see where we are at with one Bam. What is his actual name? Eldris?
No, it's not Eldris. It's
something in that neighborhood though, right?
What is his actual? I can't believe I don't remember it. It's just something I've actually said online in the past, and I can't.
Idris.
Idris, yeah.
Edrice.
Yeah, Edric, or Edrice, right? It's like Edris. Edrice, or
I actually don't know the actual proper pronunciation of that, so that's why I'll go with Bam.
Bam. Yeah, there you go.
Shocking that you end up in that.
I think it's in his Twitter tag. I want to say, or something like his Twitter account. I think has Edris in it or something like that. I'm gonna look that up now.
Alrighty, Bam Adebayo ownership right now. Jimmy Butler, by the way, 19%. Bam Adebayo. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I'm right, I'm right. And I'm right, aren't I?
We're both wrong. 1.8.
Well, okay. I'm still calling that me slightly less wrong. But my point is I'm just like, it's just thought process. Like ankle hurt, he goes questionable. It'd be like, oh, like, I think, people were still going to push it a little, but yeah, that's going to feel pretty good, huh? It's like, I think that comes in super low.
Wow.
FanDuel,
He's owned less than Jay Crowder.
Yeah.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
it's a whole, obviously the various details of any situation affect exactly this nature, but in general, I like playing players who were questionable and who play. As a general policy,
9% on FanDuel. I have
sort
a
of
bit
odd.
more than that.
Yes.
And I'm not mad about that either.
No. Go ahead. He's a truck too, by the way. Maybe I should have given more credence to him playing because he apparently is a tough dude. There's been a couple times this year where they've been like, my shoulder was out of joint for a minute there and my knee hurts and I got ice on both ankles, but I'm good.
Doesn't appear that he is the kind of guy that doesn't want to be out there. So which might be good or bad, but neither here nor there.
Yeah, it's great for his team, great for this year, bad for his career. Tends to be the way that plays out, I think. But in general, I don't know if you feel this way. Generally, I think the ownership discount on players who were questionable and get confirmed in is worth the reduced performance because you get something less. If players are questionable during the day, they will, on average, play some degree fewer minutes and be somewhat off their game. But I think the ownership reduction is even more relevant.
Guys,
in the very vague sense.
I'm with you on that one for sure.
Okay, yeah. So this being a good example.
90 minutes up, 90 minutes down. There are still 700 of you here. Only 395 likes. Can you guys boost that over 400, please? Can
we get 5 likes? I'm not leaving until we get 5 likes.
There we go.
I'm staying all night.
Let's get those likes up just slightly.
Now we're not getting the likes.
It's always great to do a show with Eddie. We had a great 9-gamer. Knock that out of the park for the past 90 minutes. Felt like it went in 10 seconds.
That's good times.
There we go. 414. You guys are the best. 422. You guys are the best. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up. Again, live before lock, PGA edition, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So an hour from now, Jason Roslin, Jeff Ulrich, no Ben Rasa tonight. I will be behind the virtual glass. I don't know the name of the PGA contest for tomorrow, but I promise you there is one. So tune into that. Eddie, anything else?
No, I'm good. I am back again tomorrow. I'm catching a rare Thursday show for me, so I'm back on the schedule of my original schedule for the week. So I am back tomorrow. I'm doing a back to back.
There you go. Eddie on a back to back. So he's going to be like 10% worse tomorrow, I guess.
Limited minutes.
Yes. Yeah. Keep an eye on it. It'll be questionable. But thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for getting those links up. Thank you for up to 481. Good work, people. Good work.
Nice job. Wow, we got like assuming some people had already hit the like button. That was some really strong like conversion at the end there, because I assume we had a couple of them already. Like a quarter of the people who had not liked immediately liked. Much appreciated.
Yeah, much obliged on that one. Best of luck tonight in the rest of your contests. I hope everything goes well. And we will see you again later. Adios. And